چهار بجا نخیسته این طرف دونیم بجا خیست.
Could I just remind everybody to mute yourselves unless you're ready to speak?
Could I switch on my video, please, Matt?
Are you unable to start your video, Toby?
Yeah, it's
Working.
It's saying you cannot start your video because we'll be able to figure out that technical hitch at some point during the meeting.
Okay, you should be able to start your video now.
Yes, perfect.
Fantastic.
Lovely. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Matt. Okay, well, yeah, with that, I suppose the first thing to say is sorry to everybody that this is the way we're having to meet this evening for our 2020 AGM. It's not ideal circumstances. I think we all appreciate what's happening, what's been happening this year. We're experiencing, I'm sure we're experiencing a significant new wave, sadly, of COVID around Kensington as well. So first off, I'd just like to wish everyone the best at this current time, and I'm hoping that this pandemic isn't affecting you too badly. So yeah, all strength and best wishes to everyone here, for yourselves and your families in a really difficult time for everyone. It's really, really quite tough. And I hope everybody does get to have a peaceful and relaxing Christmas break. So we're going to begin by going into some trustee introductions and just introduce ourselves. So I'd like to just pass over now to each trustee. If you could just make yourself known to everybody here. My name's Toby Lauren Belson, and I am the chair of the Westway Trust.
Hi everyone, my name's Angela Spence and I'm a trustee elected by the member organisations, and I'm also the vice chair of the Westway Trust.
Hi everyone, it's Hughie Walker here. I'm a member elected trustee.
Hello everyone, my name is Marie-Therese Rossi and I'm nominated, I'm one of the councillors nominated by RBKC to be on the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Eve. I'm an open recruited trustee and I'm also chair of the Charitable Purposes Committee on the board.
Everyone, I'm Shireen Williams. I'm an openly recruited trustee and I'm a safeguard lead for the organisation. Lead trustee, that is.
Okay, do we have Tom here? No, Tom's not here yet.
Tom is here.
Hello, Tom, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Okay, just try and get the video going. Yes, the video. I could. Okay, I'm Tom Fitch. I live locally on Swinbrook and I'm chair of Finance, Audit and Risk, so effectively the treasurer.
Great, thank you, Tom. And hopefully we'll soon welcome Marwan El Nagi, who is a council nominated trustee.
Marwan has just joined.
Fantastic, great timing, Marwan.
Why can't I get myself on? I don't know.
Marwan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah.
Sorry, good evening. I'm Marwan Naji. I'm a trustee and I am nominated by Royal Borough of Kensington, Chelsea. And I chair currently the Property in Place Committee. Thank you, Toby.
Fantastic. Thank you, Marwan. Okay, so just to begin with, obviously we've got a little bit of housekeeping in terms of trying to make this slightly awkward AGM run smoothly. We've got Matt and Laurel assisting us this evening. So obviously I think a lot of us will be used to now these kinds of meetings, these Zoom meetings. And one of the most difficult things is around the sound quality and ensuring that we can hear each other clearly. So please don't be offended if Matt jumps on the sound and mutes people throughout the meeting. It's so easy for us to forget that we're not on mute whilst we're, going about all sorts of things, and even the smallest noise in the background can actually, unfortunately, make quite an impact on those people speaking. So yeah, apologies in advance for being on top of that and just trying to ensure that everybody is heard when when you're up and speaking. We do have the chat, of course, and any questions we welcome into the chat, and those will be collated into a single question sheet, which will be shared in the later stages of the meeting when we begin to respond to community and member questions. So please do put anything in there. If you feel that something, for instance, hasn't been answered, please do put it into the chat, or please do bring it up again so that we can then transfer that question into that Q&A sheet, and then we can systematically go through those questions in the last part of the meeting. So to begin with, welcome everyone, and to start off, we would like to go into a 72-second silence. Yesterday, of course, was marking the 3.5-year point since the devastating fire at Grenfell. Obviously, it's an incredibly sad and difficult time that people haven't been able to gather as they have so often on the streets of North Kensington to mark that occasion and mark that moment. And so now we'd like to take 72 seconds silence to pay our respects to all those people who lost their lives, lost their loved ones, and have undergone all sorts of trauma and pressure and difficulties following that fire. Our thoughts are with you.
The car, the other way. Try it.
Thank you very much, everybody. And so, the meeting this evening, welcome to the AGM of the Westway Trust. We'll be going into some formal business first. which we hope to last no longer than 30 minutes. And we'll then go into some presentations by myself and by some trustees and our interim chief executive. We'll have a comfort break following those presentations. Then there'll be a presentation by the community advisory group to the review. We'll have a presentation from Sarah Cooby from the tables, and then we'll go into question and answers from members and the community.
No, I can hear it though.
So
No, Jeffrey's here, but it just doesn't. Yeah.
Howard, can you mute your mic?
Said hello. Hello. I'm here, but I can't seem to get. I don't think I can see you all guys, I can hear you, but can you see me?
No, but we can certainly hear you.
Okay, all right, that's half the way. I'm here in spirit and in half the body. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll try and get him. If not, I'll be listening in and try and contribute.
You're here. Would you mind if we could mute you, please?
Sorry?
Is it okay if we mute you, please?
Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so into the formal business. So apologies for absence first. We do have one apology, which is from Echoes of Spain. Our first piece of business is to approve the minutes of the annual general meeting held on the 2nd of December, 2019. And I'd like to invite any member to propose that and second that, please.
Sorry, this is Ruth Hillary. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ruth, yes.
Yes, I didn't know whether you were calling for corrections before asking for them to be approved. Just that there's a reference to me and my name is spelled incorrectly, and I'd like that corrected, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ruth. Are there any other comments on the accuracy of those minutes? No. So is there somebody who could approve those either by raising your hand or in the chat? Okay, Tom.
Yep.
Thank you. And then moving on to the chair of the Finance and Audit and Risk, please. Who is now going to do a slideshow around the accounts. Tom.
Fine. Brilliant. Just work out, fine, slide 2, thank you. I'm just going to take you through the accounts very, very quickly. For the year ending 31st of March 2020, we had an income of 6.1 million, which was made up of 5.6 million in rent and similar items, and 500,000 grant income, mainly from RBKC. We had a surplus of 620,000 in the unrestricted funds before transfers, and that's money that we can spend on any charitable purpose. Do you want to move on? Next slide. Okay, fine. The balance sheet, which is a snapshot, like a photograph of where we were on the 31st of March. The charity had a value of 64 million, which comprises of 58 million in property, that being the value of the estate, 1.4 million in accrued income, and 4.3 million in net current assets. That's debtors less creditors. The key is that we had roughly £5 million in cash in the bank. And then as a side, I'll just say it was wonderful when we came into the organisation as a new group of trustees, asked how much money there was, and they said 5 million, and we said, where is it? And they said, well, it's all cash in the bank, you can have it within 3 months. It was absolutely amazing. If we can go on to the next slide. Okay, the unrestricted funds are made up of as follows. We've got property of 9.3 million in unrestricted funds, so that's bricks and mortar, which you can't actually spend quickly. There's 1.3 million in the refurbishment fund. That mainly relates to the sports centre, which without COVID generates a high level of rent. So we put aside money to keep that in a fit state for letting. And every 10 years we do a major refurbishment. So that's largely the sports centre fund. We've got 1.8 million in the development fund. That's largely for something called Community Street. The mayor is contributing 1.3 million towards extensive improvements right the way across the estate, which will improve the visual impact and also improve the commercial lettings over time. We've got 600,000 in the maintenance fund. That's for things like heating, ventilation, generally plant, which wears out and costs a lot to replace. If we can go further down or onto the next slide. Right, impact of COVID. Obviously, this has been a major impact. Rent and similar income has gone down from 5 million to 2.7 million. So that's a cut of pretty well 50%. We've achieved savings in a wide range of areas. This includes delaying maintenance to future years. Staff have been on furlough, many of the staff. We haven't filled many vacant posts as they've arisen. And unfortunately, there's some potential for redundancies, and we've got a consultation going on at the moment for redundancies. We anticipate for the year that we will lose between 1 and 1.4 million pounds, and that next year we'll lose £500,000. So roughly over the 2 years, we'll lose about £2 million. We're looking for further cost reductions, and we'll implement those if they happen. We expect to have a balanced budget in 22-23, so that's over a year away, but we're working towards having a balanced budget. Obviously, you can see COVID's been catastrophic to the trust as well as to the population as a whole. There may be a shift from grants to community use of land if lettings don't pick up post-COVID. We've got voids at the moment. We'll just see what happens to the economy in 6 months to a year's time, and then the land use strategy will evolve out of that. That's all the comments I've got to make. If people have got any questions, I'm happy to take questions. If there are any questions, I'd ask people to not. Was that a question?
May I ask a question? It's Ruth Hillary here.
Yes.
I wanted to know about the maintenance budget and the impact of COVID. I've noticed just walking around the site, particularly around the sports centre, that it's very messy, very dirty, lots of rubbish and old equipment sort of hanging around. Is this an impact of the furloughed staff, or is that because the budget has been reduced for maintenance as a result of COVID?
It is as a result of COVID. Shireen probably knows a bit more about this than me. The responsibility is split between ourselves and everyone active, and it relates to some extent to their furloughing as well. I don't want to go into too much detail because of the commercial relationship here. Sorry about that. There will be an improvement in the next 2 years from the Community Street Fund, which should involve painting the underside of the motorway as well. So it shouldn't brighten up a lot, and the streetscape should be significantly better. On the general rubbish, and I know there's been break-ins and fencing, that's a result of COVID, and it's mixed between us and our contractor. And I don't want to go into the detail on that. Is that okay, Hilary? Sorry, it's the best I can do.
You're quite accurate, Ruth, that it is absolutely the issue around furloughing. With the lockdowns, the EA staff were just basically taken completely out, and those spaces were essentially left. But as we all know, locally, those spaces around with the pitches, the cages, they're used heavily by a lot of people, and lots of people continue to use them despite lockdown. And so rubbish did build up and things did build up. And that was acknowledged by Westway, and that was also acknowledged by the staff of EA. It's something that we've been trying to get on top of. With the current lockdowns and the different lockdowns that have been going on, I think that there are continuing issues that we are trying to get through.
Thank you.
So also, Ruth, if you are referring to the site around Maxilla, we're constantly, our property team are constantly reviewing, items that might be left in that area, large items that are fly tipped in that region. So we are constantly evaluating that area as well, just to let you know that we are onto it.
Can I just say, as everyone knows, our project works down at Maxilla. We've even recently, there's been rubbish down there that we've been reporting for over, I'd say 6 weeks now, asking for it to be removed. And it's not being done. We're getting to find that this is in general how we're getting responded to. We're having meetings and things are being said they will happen and they're not happening. So we would like it reviewed and we would like it looked into properly, how we're going to communicate the changes that are planned for that space. I don't want it just brushed over like, oh yeah, we're looking at that, when actually looking at it and doing it and communicating with us who are down there working on it, that's 3 separate areas that we'd like to see brought into one. Thank you.
Absolutely. As you know, we're in constant discussion with you, and we'll continue to work with you to ensure all of these things happen.
I just wanted it brought to the attention of everyone that things are being said but not done. And my new position in welcoming the new trustees and the new members of staff and respecting that COVID slows everything down, yeah, and the red tape, etc. 6 weeks to move 2 items, it's just an example of what happens after all of the discussions. So, maybe collectively we need to work out how, like I say, how things actually happen once all the discussions are agreed and everyone agrees that, the whole area should be kept respectable enough to feel like you can walk with your young kids down there or along any part of the Westway. So, we just need to get it to the doing part, which might be a structural thing of when instructions are given. Then, it doesn't take, like they say, 200 men to change 1 light bulb. We're a community. We can
Thank
do.
you, Marcia.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Marcia.
Marcia.
As we said, we'll come, I'm sure, more to some of the realities that this organisation has faced over the past 9 months.
Yeah.
And indeed the realities it's faced over the past 5 years and over the past 50 years that might help to enlighten all of us and as to why things take so long and as to why we are attempting to take words into action and have been attempting and indeed in some cases succeeding with that over the past 9 months. But it is, it's a big challenge. It's a big task that we've all taken on here, and the very real things that happen are that sometimes things are still taking too long. So absolutely.
Sorry, can I say something?
Marcia, and we'll absolutely take part and to continue on. There are other questions in the chat from Steve, Piers, and Jess. Steve, would you like to?
May I just say, as a start of 10, I loved reading the vision of the new Westway, notwithstanding Marcia's point about, things do need to be done, but I love the vision. It's exactly the right direction. I think I just had a quick question about, I noticed between this lot of accounts and the previous lot, there's quite a bigger spend on the charitable activities. About 700,000 was spent more on charitable activities this report as opposed to the last one. Just wondering whether Tom could give us an idea of what that spend was on.
There was an increase in grant giving, us giving money to the community. Pre-COVID, the finances were looking very rosy, and it looked like we'd sort of got over the hill as an organisation. I mean, okay, we're 50 years old, but it looked like we were sailing into times where we were going to have significant amounts of money for grant giving to the community going forward. But then COVID came in right at the end of the financial year, but it is basically that the finances had improved. The health of the contract on the sports centre was generating money, so things were going very well. Does that sort of broadly answer the question?
Tom, can I chip in?
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, it's Stephen. Chip in, Stephen.
Yeah,
Stephen's
so I'm the head of finance for the trust. The big driver in the increase has been around depreciation, and we took a decision over the course of last year to reclassify Bay 20, the community centre, as a charitable asset. It was initially set up as it was part of the investment portfolio, but when we transferred the operational of it to North Kensington Hearts and Minds, they also generate they can keep the revenue that comes from that, so it becomes a non-revenue generating property for us. So it didn't belong in the investment portfolio anymore. It got transferred into charitable buildings, and while we don't depreciate the investment buildings because they're revalued periodically, we do need to depreciate charitable assets. So it's been given a 5-year life because we're not entirely sure how long it will be fit for purpose. And it's being depreciated at about £400,000 a year.
Thank you both. That makes sense, because that's a big, I didn't realise that there wasn't a 700,000 increase in grant giving. So thank you. That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to check, I see on the chat there's some potential issues with sound. I'm not having any of those issues myself. I can hear everyone loud and clear. But yeah, if Matt can do any checks on that, that would be appreciated. So into a question from Piers, please.
Hi guys, Piers Thompson from Silchester Residents Association. Sorry, I had another question, but Stephen, just on that point you made, you said 400k was down to the reallocation of the depreciation on Bay 20. What was the other 300k?
We have an increase in grant giving. That went up by about 130,000, I believe, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
The remainder of it, I will need to put my hands up and say I will actually need to compare one set of notes to the other. I'm afraid I don't keep all the numbers in my head. I haven't got some accountants can do that, and I'm not one of them. So I'd rather go away and check and actually give you an accurate answer as opposed to one off the cuff.
All right, okay. And on that subject then, what has the payment for the Tutu report come under in the accounts?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Right, that seems quite an important categorization for quite an important and significant spend. Anyway, it's not what I wanted to ask. On this question about anticipating losses for the current year, what are the criteria for allowing people to have rent holidays? The reason I ask that is one of our members, the Maxilla Social Club, has continued to pay full rent throughout this. Joe has had to frighten off Rocky and some of the other kind of predatory parkers outside the club. He says he spent up to £1,500 clearing such as human excrement from that area in front of the club. I don't know if he spent also 70 grand on improving the club during lockdown. He's carried on paying full rent. He says no one has talked to him at any point. Could someone clarify what the criteria for letting people off rent is?
I can touch upon that. So there are different criteria depending on what tenant. The tenants across the 23 acres are different. We have tenants, for instance, who are community, charitable purpose, charities, charitable organizations. We have local businesses, and we also have national businesses such as Sainsbury's, JC Deco. So the criteria around providing concessions has obviously got to be fitted to each of those different tenants. There have been communications with tenants in order to support them with rent concessions around lockdown and those sorts of things. So I'm really sorry to hear that he hasn't been spoken with, because tenants really they have been or should have been made aware that they could look at and come to us and discuss potential for rent concessions or other types of support. We've been engaging with other agencies like Portobello Business Centre, like the council, to see what support all organisations can get, because as we know, there are various supports out there, like for instance, the income retention scheme, but also things around business rates, things about grants you can get as a small business, etc., etc. So all of that has gone into our thinking around providing concessions and extra support. So if we can take this, please, to our staff, and we'll have someone contact Joe immediately and see what's going on.
That would be great, Toby, because not only is he in the hospitality industry, as we all know, when he took over the club, there was a colour bar there in whatever it was, 1993. He arrived with a steel band and said, everyone is welcome in here. He closed the place down, filled it up relentlessly and time after time after the fire with provisions that had been sent from all around the country, all around the world. So, he must be a significant tenant in the estate. So I really would ask that you would help all of us on Silchester by someone senior going directly to Joe and asking if he needs any help. Thanks, Toby.
Absolutely.
Can I? So I'm not sure if you, hi, this is Teresa. I'm not sure if you can see me. I can't see the whole screen. This is Teresa Shonibari, the Associate Director of Estates. Just to interject on that, I have actually spoken to Joe. And when we had the first lockdown, I contacted all the tenants down at that end of the estate, just to understand what position their business is, what support was available, and ask questions about what support was needed. So I have spoken to him, but I will touch base with him again to see if there's any further support that he needs. But I have spoken to him previously.
And yeah, just to say, it's important to note that obviously we all know here that the Westway Trust is a charity, and therefore we've got to deal with the Charity Commission, and we've got there are legal implications around giving away beneficiaries' money, and so all of those things as well, those implications also come into our decision making around the support that we provide both to charitable organisations, but also to the commercial organisations who rent space. But we do have systems that we're implementing to make.
Hello, can I speak on this?
Yes, sure. Is that Luke?
Yes.
Yes, please.
I got cut off. I'm not very good with the technology, but I was seeing all that refurbishment money you got in. I was trying to go back because I got cut off. But I'm down by Stable Way, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's been a few times I've walked, you lot have all walked through there, and I've walked with you, and I've said to you, if this was Fort Close, it would never look like that, would it? Mm-hmm. With all the rubbish and the mess. And you got all that money sitting in the kitty. I've been down there for 30 odd years.
Mm-hmm.
And you get your rent off me every week, every month you get your money.
Mm-hmm.
You've never spent any money down here.
That's fair,
so
yeah.
It's not fair. I've been here 32 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got all this money sitting there. Why haven't you lot spent some money down Stable Way? The holes in Stable Way is disgusting. Mm-hmm. The holes, and I've mentioned it all the time. You can't just come and fill it up. And you've all walked down there. You've all walked down Stable Way, and it's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And I do a lot of different kind of work, and it's embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
It's like you lot got all that dough there, and you ain't doing it. So what I would like to know is why it's not been done in 30 odd years. Why has it been left like that? And even times when I've implemented stuff, I put all the double yellow lines down there, and it was working fine. You get where I'm coming from. So why is it being left like that? This is what I want to know. Why haven't you spent any of that big money you got down there every month to get my rent? Even I'm in credit with you, Sunday. I'm in credit only since lockdown, but you're still getting my rent, and the place is a shithole. And I said to them before, if I took all of this rubbish and put it down Fort Close, how long would it be there? You answered me that, Toby. How long would it be there if all that rubbish in Stable Way was down there?
Yeah.
Do you understand where I'm coming from? And I've been here a long time. I've been here a long, long time. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. So if you can answer some of them questions, that would be nice. It's the same as that lady was talking about the rubbish in there. The problem you got down there is you need to lock it off. Why you just put a barrier across there, and that will stop all the problems. Put a barrier across there. You give the man in the pub a key. You know, he deserves a bit of, when you go in there and all that shit in there, it doesn't take much to get rid of that stuff. Because obviously you guys can't be bothered. It's got to be a reason, because you got the dough and it's not a problem. You got the pieces of paper to put 7-day notices. There's no reason for it to be like that. So if it's like that, it's up to management. It's not the workers don't want to do it. It's up to higher. You get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, completely get
it would be nice if you could answer some of the questions. I'm going to turn my phone off now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Yeah, so obviously, it's a very good question, and a very real question, and vital to this organisation. It's 23 acres of land that we've got here, and it's quite clear, it's quite apparent that different sections are.
Can I speak?
Can I answer the questions that you've asked?
No. I just want to take that a minute. I'm 33 years I've been here. I don't know how long you've been on it, Westway. I've been here 33 years. I'm asking you, in your heart, why has Stable Way been left like that for 33 years? Why is it? Why is it it's been left like that? And it's that's why I'm not interested in the other 23 acres. I'm interested just there. That's my more simple question. I've been here a long time, probably one of the longest serving tenants. Yeah. Why has it been left like that? And you got all that reserved money for maintenance in the thingy, and then you charge me. Service charge. So answer me. I don't want to hear no waffle. It's the first time I've ever got this. I don't want to hear no nonsense chat. I want to hear why has Stable Way been left rag and ruin? Why?
Can I speak?
We've been here for 9 months. So I guess we're just trying to answer those questions ourselves. I think there are a lot of questions to be answered. As you know, we've had a review into institutional racism, or as you should know, there's a review.
That's what I was going to say to you. Is it because I'm black? Is it?
That came out on Friday, which was the result of years of trying to get the answers to some of these questions as to why some places were not being treated the same as others, why some individuals and
Toby.
So you're asking me a question where, frankly, I've only been here for 9 months, and I'm trying to answer.
Appreciate that.
Questions. I'm trying to
appreciate that, and I apologise for putting you like that.
That's why
I put you on the spot like that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You put me on the spot. I'm happy to.
What I'm saying to you, listen to what you say,
on the spot, but I do need. I also I want to have a discussion, and I want to have a dialogue with you, because this is the heart of the issue, and it's actually why we're here. Because exactly your experience being there for 33 years, for 33 years, Luke, and you feel this way, and you've had this experience. That can't be right.
I'll tell you what brought it to me. I'll tell you what woke me up. Listen, I was the first person down here, 33. When I come down here at 19, with all them travellers and living and working down here, what I went through down here is second to none. But someone said to me, Luke, the other day, Luke, you've been there how long? I was 19. He said, well, and you've been there with these people all this time? He said, yeah. He said, well, you're the man, innit? You're the man. To be able to work and stay here for all that time and be successful and be with the travellers, I need a medal. Plus, I took them to college. I did so much stuff. And I said to them people, if it was a white man, he would have got a medal for what I did. You understand where I'm coming from? And I feel it. And you don't need this black on black thing. It's made me realise. All that now, if you come in now, it's still black people here. I'm training the black kids. I'm doing this. And all this time I want to do this. I spent about 47 grand converting a welding workshop and doing my thing with it. But I never get no, it's just push in the background. And I was kind of find why. But now I've got my own money. I don't need their money to do it. And I'm going to do it now. We're going to see what's going to go on now. You get where I'm coming from?
Okay, I appreciate it. Look, let's this is obviously a massive issue, and it's wrapped up with Sarah, who's going to be given a presentation later, or speaking at least to us later.
It's not wrapped up with Sarah. Don't listen to me, please. Let's get one thing straight. Hello. Can we stop it? Can we stop a minute?
Big thing that you're bringing up, and it deserves more time and more energy than we can honestly give here, spread amongst 50 people. But your message is clear, and we need to actually take that on board. And it's not.
There's been a load of fuckery going on.
You're not the only person who's raised this. There are staff members who have raised this. There are trustees who have raised this. There is Sarah. There are other people who have raised this. So it's, you know, this is why we're here. We are here to begin to answer.
I must be living proof then, innit? Because I must be living proof because I've survived it and I've been here 30 odd years. And I'm living proof of it. Like, if I wasn't a hard-working man, if I wasn't a hard-working man, if I was a thief, I wouldn't be here. But I'm here now and I'm busier than ever. And I'm doing things and I've got good, you know, I'm going to cut off. I lost my screen, Toby, so I'm going to be struggling. I won't be, carry on, clear? Sorry.
No, thank you, Luke. Thank you.
Yeah, the whole heap of things going to get.
There's a lot, as you look, I think everybody appreciates here that there's a huge amount to get into. This is 23.
There's a lot of wishy-washy. There's too much wishy-washy going on. We need to get to the point now. Where's all this money going and it's the thing is, we got a whole heap of our own children here who are suffering and they ain't got no skills. All they're doing is turning to drugs. And we need to be focusing on teaching our children skills. The Westway Trust need to convert what it's doing, and we need to be building place to teach our children. That's what we need to be doing. That's our only focus. Not all this bollocks about this, that, and that. You got all this money sitting there. Let's put the money into good things to encourage our children. We ain't got no more. I've got kids coming here. They got nowhere to go. That's got to be our priority. You know all this.
We know. Believe me, we know. You're talking to someone who has delivered like probably 100 projects in the area for young people over the course of 50 years. I'm here to do this exact thing. That's why I'm here.
Okay.
But I've been here for 9 months.
Okay.
Working for 4 or 5 days every week for 9 months, along with trustees who have been given You're
lucky you can only work for 4 or 5 days. I work 7 days a week.
Take this forward. Believe me, Luke, we're on this and we are moving forward. So
okay. I'll be watching this space, just trying to work out how to get it. Okay.
If we can move forward, because we do have, you know, a lot and other people have input into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Hear you, 100%. There was a finance question from Jess, please.
Thanks, Toby. Yeah, it was a question probably for Tom, I think. Just be interested in understanding a bit more of the detail around the roughly 9 million that was at the first point under designated funds. Thank you.
That's money we've invested in property, so it's money that's been generated from rents and the general income of the estate. And then we put that into new properties. But Stephen might be able to clarify it a bit more. Stephen. Look, I've lost him.
That's a good summation of it. It's basically funds that we've used to create investment assets on the estate from our own funding, as opposed to outside sources.
Excellent. There is a question in the chat from Christian. So perhaps that could be copied into our question for later, please.
One thing I have done, sorry, Toby, in answer to Piers' questions around Tutu, the costs are inside professional fees and costs. They've been allocated to charitable activities solely because doesn't relate to property management. It relates to the operation of the charity. The amount allocated in the charitable activities was £47,000, and Tutu is the money we have paid towards, or the costs of Tutu generated in 1920 are within that number.
So, sorry, Stephen, what was the total cost of the Tutu?
I'll need to check the total cost. Last year we incurred £31,000 of costs. In terms of the overall project, I'll need to double check the number.
31,000.
31,000 was incurred last year.
What, not in 1920?
Yeah, that's not the total cost of the project.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions on finance, please?
There's a question from Christian, which we haven't answered to be. I'd like to ask the extent to which losses have been offset by
You want to
COVID
answer that straight
funding
away?
government insurance. Basically, the government money's coming through furlong. That's most of the money that we've got on that. We've appointed a fundraiser who Toby's working with on fundraising going for the next couple of years. Stephen may have some more comments on what we've been able to pull in as a result of the COVID crisis. It's mainly furlong money.
Okay, so could we move forward now?
Can we adopt the accounts, Toby, and can we adopt the minutes from the last AGM as well? Just looking at what the agenda says. I'll receive the report for the year, and then appoint the.
Yeah, Tom, we have two ordinary
first of all,
resolutions coming up now.
Fine.
Yeah. Okay, so we have our first ordinary resolution, which is to receive the trustees' annual report and accounts and auditors' reports for the year ended 31st of March 2020. And so if I can invite a proposer for that.
Happy to propose.
Thank you, Steve. And could we have someone to vote for that, please? And I think Laurel and Martin will count the votes for that. Do we have a seconder for it?
I'll second Mary Fotheringham from Mind.
Okay, I think we already had one in the chat. Thank you, Mary. I think we already had one in the chat. The Harbour is there. Thank you very much. Okay, and so can we move to the vote, please, on that? So if you could just raise your hand clearly in front of the screen if you vote for. And so then Martin and Laurel will count those votes. Okay, thank you, Mary.
Sorry, Toby, can I ask one question? Who's voting here?
Members.
So only members are voting?
Yes. Okay, Martin, Laurel, could you let us know when those have all been counted?
Okay, I count 12, including hands raised and hands virtually raised. So that's 12-4.
Yes, excuse me, I'm at 12 as well.
Okay, and do we have any against that resolution? Would you like to raise your hand if you're against it? Okay, thank you. Now, if we can move on to the...
Sorry, Toby, sorry, just to go, one last question. Are you allowed to tell us that that means there are 12 members at the AGM?
Martin, you can confirm how many members we ought to have at the AGM today, Stephen?
We had 29, excuse me, 29 members registered, but only 12 seem to have voted on this resolution. Now, unless anybody, for whatever reason, didn't put their hand up, both myself and Laurel only counted 12 members. So I've just seen a question from Marcia in the chat room. Couldn't hear the motion. What were we voting for?
Yes, sure. The ordinary resolution was to receive the trustees' annual report and accounts and the auditor's report for the year ended 31st of March 2020. Essentially, we've completed the annual accounts and the audit as well to go with that. And this vote is to accept those documents, essentially to accept that they are an accurate reflection of the accounts for this year.
I'm conscious that not everybody has their video switched on, their camera switched on. Could I possibly indulge us to take the vote again, but this time everybody to do the virtual raising of the hand against their name? Because I think that might be easier. I'm slightly worried we might have missed 1 or 2 people the first time round.
Absolutely. And is there anybody as well, if you haven't got your camera on and you know how to raise your hand? Is there a way to do that for? Yeah, here we go. You can see in the chat, there are people raising their hand.
Yeah. So if all those in favour of the motion could raise their hands virtually, please, against their name. And then we actually get a number coming up in the right hand against that as well, which is really helpful.
Sorry, is that what you meant, to hit raise hand in the chat?
Yeah, and it comes up against your name then on the list of participants. Okay, 13 hands raised for the motion. You will take your hands down now, please. Thank you. And if anybody is against receiving the account, so against the motion, could you raise your hand virtually now, please? No, 0. Okay. And finally, any abstentions? Raise their hands now, please. Nobody wishes to abstain.
So would that then include, I have to ask Marcia, given what you've said in the chat, would you like to abstain?
Yeah, one abstention. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. So could you just confirm the votes, please, for that?
Yes, we had 13 for the resolution, 0 against, and 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. And my mistake, sorry, Marcia, you didn't abstain, you voted yes. I'm sorry, I mixed up your message with the one below from Ian Cassidy. So if we could move on to the second ordinary resolution, which is to reappoint Moore Kingston Smith as the Westway Trust's auditors and authorize the trustees to fix their remuneration. And so again, could I have somebody please to propose this?
So, sorry, Toby, is it possible for someone to tell us why they are our auditors? Because we vote for this every year and no one ever asks a question about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they've been our auditors for a certain amount of time. I think there have been other auditors previously. Yeah, it is a question. Tom, is there a particular reason? We've stuck with these auditors as far as I'm aware because of everything else that's been going on. So changing auditors in the middle of everything that's been going on wasn't really a top priority, frankly.
I mean, it's no big thing, but next year, could you guys tell us why we've chosen them.
Yeah, Tom, could you tell us?
No, next year. We can wait till next year. We've had COVID this year. We should get on. But it's sometimes we never question some of these things that just come every time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I can tell you, Piers, we have questioned it. As trustees, we have questioned it. But this year it was felt that now was not the time to change. So, yeah, so can we move on to the this resolution and...
I'll propose it.
Piers, yeah?
I'll propose it.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder, please? Any member?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mary. And so can we move into the votes for, please? Could everyone vote digitally? Is that okay? I see a couple of hands up, but is there possible everybody could manage to vote digitally, please? Okay, and then
that is 13. It says 11 because Tom and Piers are each voting for two organisations. They're representing two organisations, so they haven't got two hands they can put up digitally. But I've noted they each have voted for two organisations.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to pull that back. What about the last vote then, which said 13? Does that mean that was actually 15?
It is now, because I've just been having a chat with Tom and Piers to clarify that. So it is 15 for the first motion and now 13 for this second motion.
Okay, great, thank you. And now could we go for anybody against the motion, please? We lower all hands.
Yeah, lower all hands, please, and then.
And now going, anybody against?
No, okay.
And any abstentions, please?
No, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so any other business before we move into our presentation?
There is no other business formally notified for this part of the meeting, Toby.
Okay, thank you. So now if we go into the second part of the meeting, where we will go through some presentations really to show a little bit of what has happened this year and kind of how we got here. It's been quite a year. And we hope that these brief presentations by myself, Angela, Shireen, and our interim chief executive, Mark, will help to bring a little bit of clarity over some of what has gone on. So I'm just going to take through a brief timeline. As we know, the Westway was built in the late 1960s or mid 1960s. And there was a campaign between 68 and 71 where members of the local community won the 23 acres for the benefit of local people. Here we have a photo by Adam Ritchie. Adam Ritchie was one of those people who led that campaign with his colleague, John O'Malley. And they were successful in winning the 23 acres for this community to ensure that it was for our benefit. The next slide, please. The North Kensington Amenity Trust was what was created to administer the land. And the board of that trust was split between Conservative councillors and local groups. Here we have on the left an image of an original North Kensington Amenity Trust constitution, the header of that constitution. And on the right, we have a quote from a book called Taking on the Motorway by Andrew Duncan, which was written about the history of the trust, where he wrote very clearly that the council did not want the local community who had fought so hard to win that land to actually take control of it. Instead, the trust that was created was handed mostly to the council and to organisations who were essentially friendly to the council. The council wanted to pick a handful of respectable, moderate and non-political organisations. As Sir Maltby Crofton, the leader of the RBKC Council at the time, said, with trustees that may still be in operation in 100 years' time. This was essentially a way of excluding many of the community groups that had arisen around the 60s, the 50s, the 60s and the 70s, and who were driving so much change in the area and obviously for our local politics and our local community. Next slide, please. 1971 to 2014. Events take place, buildings and spaces are formed, the local community make use of the land, the local community are excluded from the land, and individuals take over. So many people here will have so many memories of what has happened in these years. And so I can't even begin to go into those. There are so many stories. I mean, as we've heard, for instance, from Luke this evening, you know, that's a tiny flavor of what people have experienced over so many years on this land. So I'm not in a position really to go into that any further. Many of those stories, I hope, will come out more and more over the years. In that time, the North Kensington Amenity Trust became the Westway Development Trust. Changed its name. Next slide, please. And in 2014, the constitution of the Westway Development Trust was changed. Going from a board that had half representation from the council and half from local groups, it changed its constitution in 2014, with half the board becoming openly recruited. 3 trustees were now council representatives and 3 were representatives of local groups. At this point, we saw finance and property specialists join the board, and this new strategy, Destination Westway, was born, which was clearly about regeneration and commercialization. In its words, realizing the full potential of our community today and tomorrow in ways that didn't seem to actually put the community in charge of that realization, or give the local community an opportunity to have a real, proper say in that realization. This was the time where the organization took on Angela McConville as its CEO. And I'm sure many of us are aware of the clashes that then took place. The next slide, please. In 2015, drawings for the new development and regeneration of the Westway Trust land were released to the community. And what we saw in these visions for the land was simply unrecognizable. My own view is that it was the impact of these drawings, together with the closures that took place of multiple spaces across the 23 acres, that really were all across the 23 acres, not just the Thorpe Close end, but also the Latimer end as well. And it was the impact of all of this collectively that shocked so many people into action. And a campaign was started from that moment. This would have been around February or March 2015. The next slide, please. The campaign named itself Westway 23, and it set about supporting those affected by the closures, raised awareness, and built an understanding of what had been wrong, and began to develop a case for fundamental change. All of this took place with hundreds of people coming to meetings and sharing so many stories, an unbelievable number of stories and experiences with each other. And you could not fail, I mean, any of us who were in those meetings, you couldn't fail to be impressed just by the number of people and the number of experiences that crossed over. There was something going on that couldn't be let go. A Westway 23 member actually joined the board early on. And that happened because members of the campaign had a meeting with the chair at the time and agreed that there would be a rebalancing of the board beginning in 2015. And that board member from the campaign, from Westway 23, would be the beginning of that change, that there would be further changes. It was agreed that the Westway Trust would be given the time to prove that it could make changes. Next slide, please. Westway 23 held meetings at the flyover as it was closing down. Then open meetings took place over 3 years at the Tabernacle and the Venture Centre, many meetings, often weekly meetings, where people would come and share more and more experiences and reason around how things were ever going to change with this organisation. As many of us know, the leadership of the Westway Trust were invited to a public meeting at the Tabernacle and they refused to attend that meeting, citing the safety of the staff. Next slide, please. Lots of meetings. Westway 23 organised processions along the 23 acres. It was so important for people to be on the land and see around the land, see what was going on. I think, again, what we've heard this evening from Marcia and from Luke, it's people are on this land. It's a large stretch of land and it's easy to miss different bits. It's easy to not understand what's going on at one end or the other. And the procession was an attempt to help people get onto the land and look around and see what was happening, see what they were losing, see what they had lost, see what was supposed to be theirs. And throughout all of this time, a vision for the trust was barely spoken of, other than the board must be rebalanced. The next slide, please. A vote was taken at the meeting at the Tabernacle to attend the 2015 AGM at St. Helens Church. And this is where the community turned up in force to that AGM and effectively shut it down. Effectively ensured that from that point on, the trust would listen to the community. Next slide, please. The focus throughout was holding the organisation to account, and many members of the campaign and people who wouldn't say they were part of the campaign, but were still members of the community, were constantly holding the leadership to account, communicating with them throughout. I know so many people who were constantly sending emails, visiting the trust, and constantly putting pressure on the leadership to give them that chance to change. And of course, a lot of it was about supporting those people who had suffered so much at the hands of the trust because of the closures and the lack of access that went on and on. Through this time, a decision was made to press for an independent investigation into institutional racism. And as we know, that was something that was denied by the trust for 2 years. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to hand over to Shireen Williams, who was that trustee who put herself on the line to go into the organization as it was. Thank you, Shireen. You're muted, Shireen.
Just had to give myself a dummy one before presenting. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out today. Thank you for being vocal. Please, as time goes along, continue to share your thoughts, your concerns. You know, if you see anything on the 23 acres, you know, just keep us, you know, in the loop so that we can do better. Yeah, as I was saying, sorry, I just wanted to just talk about my journey into becoming a trustee at the Westway Trust. Being part of Westway 23 and campaigning, I remember the opportunity had come up where discussions were held around, you know, choosing a member of Westway 23 to become a trustee. And Niles approached me and he'd asked me if I wanted to be a trustee, and I'd said to him, I don't think I could do it. But with his support and his guidance and encouragement, I decided to become a trustee at the Westway Trust. The process in becoming a trustee wasn't easy because obviously I am part of the community and part of Westway 23, and then I had to become a trustee at the same time. And, you know, there were difficult periods throughout, but the experience was rewarding. And there were trustees within the organization who were continually fighting for, you know, the improvements within the trust in regards to the community, constantly, you know, communicating that message. And a lot of the times those demands sometimes were ignored. So I've just got a small message I wrote, and I'd just like to read that out. So the last number of years have proved to be more than challenging. There has been effort internally and externally from the community and members within the organisation to right the wrongs of the past. The world is constantly changing. The internal environment at Westway is changing. When the priority and vision is purposed correctly, we see and feel progression. The early is always the unknown. The short, medium, and long-term vision and strategies of the trust will prove the test of time. Revisiting the past in the future will look very different to how it has been played out over the last 50 years. There is a lot of work to do. And you know, it's epic that the Tutor report has been released or was released on Friday. And we understand that there is a lot of work to be done ahead. And we just hope that, you know, the community staff can come together and we can all make the trust into a better organisation where there aren't as many complaints, and, you know, where investment can be made on the land, can be made on the people, staff, etc. And we can just be better as time goes along. And it might sound like sound bites, but that is our aim and our vision. And I hope that you share that with us also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Wonderful. Could we now hand to Angela Spence, who's been such, well, not really any words can be said, frankly, because she's been absolutely immense in all that she's done at the Trust. She essentially remains as the connection between our new board and the old board. Angela, along with other former trustees, did so much to implement the change. It's not just everything that's gone on outside of the Trust. There is so much that had to take place inside the Trust as well. And Angela and other trustees, some who are unfortunately not on the board anymore, were instrumental in that. So please, Angela.
Thanks, Toby. Right, I think the easiest way to start is really to talk about the difficult decision it was for me in terms of staying once Shireen had decided to go. For me, it was a difficult decision. I think it was easy for me to think, actually, I should go too. But I really felt that I owed it to Shireen and Fiona to stay. And as you know, Alan Brown departed in 2019, and I made the decision to become the interim chair. And it wasn't an easy decision because I knew the weight of responsibility that was on me as interim chair to bring about the change, to try and, the one thing I knew was that we just, as an organisation, just couldn't keep going the way we were going. So as interim chair, I knew that that responsibility was going to be on me to begin to start to implement the change that was needed. So after Alan left, there was quite a reduction of board members over a period of time within 2019, and we were left with a smaller number of trustees on the board. But being small at that time, it meant that we could make decisions quite quickly, which was a change from what was happening previously. We were able to make decisions quite nimbly. And one of the things we said that we would do would be to pause any future plans on property development. We just knew that we just didn't want to continue going down that road of property development, knowing that we really needed to stop as an organisation and really think about where we need to get to. And that really was the priority. It was the fact that we didn't want to be the way we were. We knew that we needed to change. And we just felt that we couldn't focus on anything else at that time around property development. So that was stopped. And in that time as well, the work around the institutional racism began. So I was on I joined the community advisory group, working with NALS and colleagues around the work to begin the investigation into institutional racism. I'm the first to acknowledge, I'm sure all others will agree on the advisory group, that it has been a very challenging experience, but it's also been worthwhile, and I've learned a lot, and I certainly think I'm the better for being part of that work. And alongside that was the recruitment of a new chair. So we knew that we didn't want to do the usual approach, which was you advertise in the usual third sector magazines or The Guardian looking for a trustee. And, the fact that we needed a new chair meant that we had a real opportunity to think about how we can do this differently, knowing that what we would ideally want is people from the community who can recognise that this is something that they can take on, that they can do. And the way we felt we could do this was from the board stepping back and saying, well, let the community be part of that decision-making process. Let them select the people that they feel want to be interviewed for chair, and let them be part of the final decision for choosing the chair. And that was the approach that we took. It was to openly recruit a panel that was from the community, and we worked closely with them right through until that chair was chosen. And I'm really, really pleased and proud about the choice that we made with Toby. There were some really good candidates for chair. But Toby, you know, I felt as chair really summoned what this organisation needed to do and what it needed to be. And his determination to see that through really came through at the interview. And I've, you know, I have to say, since Toby's been chair and I've witnessed the immense amount of work that he does, I absolutely know it was the right decision. And I've been really, really honoured, really, to be working with Toby. And alongside that, obviously, we have now trustees who are from the community, who are on the board, who are leading the organisation. And this, for me, is the change that was needed at the Trust. And just to summarise, really, my learning from the time at the Trust was that I recognise that change can happen, and it does happen, but it also takes time. It can be frustrating, but I've learned that with patience, we can see it through and change does come. So thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you very much. Thanks for your kind words about me as well. Thank you. Yeah, so here you go. I mean, this is a kind of bit of insight. I'm all up for transparency and honesty and openness. And so here you go. Here is some of my presentation from my recruitment when I went to become chair. I initially signed up to be part of the recruitment panel, which I think eventually there were 9 members from the community on that panel. I spoke with a lot of people and made the decision to apply to become chair myself. It took a lot of thought. It took a lot of kind of, I suppose, mental and emotional and spiritual preparation, because which has been worthwhile because of everything that we've now, you know, had to cope with over the past 9 months. And I'm very, very glad that I took that time to really prepare myself and consider what it meant. But this was the decision we made after 3 years of watching the Trust make tokenistic changes, or changes that were really designed purely to placate us. As a group, we made the decision to make final demands for what we believed was real change. And that included the resignation of the chair at the time, the appointment of a new chair, an end to the corporate executive structure, which essentially meant an executive structure which took a hell of a lot of money out of the organization, a new purpose of community grant giving and investment, a new membership structure that really enabled constructive dissent and enabled the kind of spaces that Westway 23 created for themselves. And of course, an immediate rebalancing of the Board of Trustees to carry out what we'd originally agreed. I'm very proud to say that in the 9 months we've been here, essentially we've taken forward, I believe, 4 out of these 6 in meaningful ways. It's been an immense workload to do that, but I was very clear from day one that I wanted to put my foot on the pedal. I have committed, you know, sometimes 5 or 6 days a week to this, with nothing in return. That has been voluntary. That has been on me. That has been on my family. But that's the commitment. That's what this is about. I didn't do four years of campaigning with Niles and with Eve and with Tom and so many others, Dio and Jacob, etc., Moira, so many people who came to our meetings. I didn't do all of that to take my foot off the pedal. So that's where we are. The next slide, please. As far as we were concerned, yeah, the trust had failed to bring about this rebalancing. And this was really what it was about, as far as I was concerned. These were, again, part of my presentation. It was about taking the finance, legal, property, executive, and council out of the center of this organization and putting community in the center of this organization. And there was only really one place that could begin. It had to begin at the board. It had to begin at the place where true authority lies and true accountability lies, with us as the trustees. So this has always been the intention from day one, and this is what we will continue to work towards. The next slide, please. So here we are in 2020, and the Westway Trust has a board like never before in its 50-year history. There are so many good people who have been on this board throughout those years. And it is just a shame that they were never given the opportunity to properly lead this organization. But now we have changed that. We are members of this community, and we know there are many others who share our knowledge and our commitment to this part of West London. We're here to enact change and to take this organization through transformation, but this can only be the beginning. It's taken us 50 years to get here. It's not all for us to do. It's for others to do. I wasn't born when this organization came into being. And there will be people who are not born yet who will lead this organization, who must lead this organization. People who, like us, have shared this space in so many different ways, through our volunteering, through our work, through our schooling, where our children go to school, where we live. As far as we're concerned, this must now be the focus for this organization. The next slide, please. There's been real change at the executive level. When we said that we wanted change to the corporate executive structure, that was the one demand that many people queried. Many people weren't entirely sure what we meant. Well, it was about ensuring that the leadership of the organization operationally, the executive, were as committed to our vision as the trustees. And we always questioned how much money was spent at executive level, where you had executives who were on large salaries, taking over £100,000 a year out of the organization each. That was something that we questioned. Over the past 12 months, Westway Trust has seen the departure of 5 executive staff, and the combined cost of them is £462,000. I can tell you from the work that we do, we'll hear from Mark soon, and Mark's value is immense to this organization, absolutely immense, as it has been over the past 4 months in supporting our board. But I'm sure he would stand next to me and say he would happily see 4 or 5 staff members come in for his salary who can perform to the level that some of our staff members are performing today. There's huge commitment from our staff, huge ability. And so we must continue to look now at our executive structures and think carefully about how the money is actually spent and the values that those people hold, and how we can support our current staff to be all that they can be in supporting our community. Next slide, please. And so we're looking forward to 2021. It's going to be a very tough year. It's been a tough year, as we all know. The foot's not going to come off the pedal. We've got to carry on with the energy that we've put in up to now. We are building new things. We are putting things in place that can enable us to keep on moving and to keep on progressing. The Westway Trust has been cut back over the past 9 months to reflect both our strategic direction and also the stark financial realities that we're facing. That has put huge pressure on individuals in the organization, and we need to now consider how we can rebuild things and rebuild this organization into something that can be trusted and be a reliable part of our community. As I say to a lot of people, I'm not really interested in this organization being a partner to this community. It is not outside of this community, it is within this community. We need to build partnerships outside, whether that's with the GLA, whether that's with RBKC, whether that's with trusts and funds, companies of all sizes, organizations of all sizes, individuals of all backgrounds. We can build partnerships with those. But the trust has to be within our community. It has to be a part of our community. People should not be looking at the trust and speaking of it as though it is separate to this community. I am not separate to this community. And that's going to take time. That's going to take a long time, because there are currently only 78 people in this meeting. And we have 40,000 beneficiaries. But it's an honor to be here today to talk about this organization becoming a part of our community again. And I'm hoping, and I'm really asking for the support of everyone here to help us with that, to help us with this journey. To the next slide, please. Two people were key in securing this 23 acres of land. John O'Malley and Adam Ritchie. A couple of days ago, I got this email from Adam. And it tells us everything we need to know. People should be under no illusions of where we are and how hard we fought to get where we are and why we have gotten here. We've gotten here because our elders and our ancestors have guided us. They have given us the energy, and collectively we have grown the energy together to be at this point. We lost John this year. And I'd like all of us now to take a minute to think about John and to think about all the other people we've lost this year. The others we've lost in this 5-year journey to be here. Those we've lost in the 50-year journey to be here. And those we've lost in the long, long journey before that to be here. Take a minute, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we're now going to move on to Mark. Mark Lister is our interim chief executive. Gives me great pleasure to welcome him here. Huge pleasure, this AGM. We brought Mark in July, and he has joined our team and shown us consistently that he shares our values and that he is here to support us and support our community in this journey for the, albeit quite brief time that he will be with us. He's now going to take us through our strategy, which is something that we've created in the last few months. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Toby, and welcome everyone. Really pleased to be here with you this evening because it's an amazing moment, and what you've been hearing from the community leadership of this organisation over the last hour or so is a reflection of how amazing we, the people of North Kensington, are in this community, how you welcome others from the outside across generations and become the richer for it. And for me, the amazing achievements of you, the people of North Kensington, actually to force the 23 acres to come into community control and do something with it, and then to persevere through all of this to bring it back into the community again now, this amazing opportunity, of course, required a new strategy. But because the new community leadership will put a new strategy in place involving the community, we needed something to bridge that gap. I'm a little part of that bridge from where Westway Trust was at into a community-centered strategy. So this is the interim to take you through to that bridge, and it begins with strategic goals around social, economic and environmental well-being and justice for our North Kensington community, and supporting our North Kensington community to address injustice, discrimination, poverty and exclusion. Next slide, please. And the community leadership in our trustees has worked with the staff team, bringing their knowledge and experience of the community and those community voices loud around the table to identify priorities, 6 priorities at the moment. And first and foremost, and I think it's come out really strongly this evening, is about being community-centered in all that we do. That's in the decision-making and citizen control. You heard how the work that Angela did in bringing together the recruitment for the new chair, for Toby to come on board, was a genuine community decision. And believe me, I see that playing out in every day inside Westway Trust, how bringing the community in is critical, and allocating that control. So when you choose your chief executive, the permanent one, as I step aside, you'll be participating in that, not only through your pre-chosen community leadership of the community trustees, but also, again, will be involved in that. So this participatory approach will play out across the organisation. So every aspect of Westway Trust will involve that. So the decision-making of the grant-making will involve a community-led panel. We'll move to participatory grant-making with young people taking part in the first pilot of that. So they themselves, local young people, choose what the priorities are for those grant making. Toby's already been very clear about the openness and the transparency and the clarity that needs to come with that. The second one is around the new trustee leadership came in at, of course, at a really difficult time because of the battle that you've had to get here. And then, of course, was thrown this massive additional hit of the tragedy in our community of COVID, but also the impact on income of that. So a secure and sustainable future in the income is going to be really important as well, and battling through that. Identifying new sources of income together, and as Toby and the others have talked about, Tom, reducing expenditure has been really necessary as well. And then the third area, in a way, is recognizing what what we in North Kensington have already achieved so much in that history of using the voice to achieve change. And that's why the community leadership are now here, why the 23 acres are returning to you in your control. But recognizing to support, continue to support that voice, to become stronger, to challenge systemic change, as well as individual change. Tackling economic aspects and environmental aspects and social aspects of justice. Next slide, please. So then the other three areas, of course, enhancing the space and the environment in the 23 acres, supporting a new community-centered program to target the air pollution that comes down from the 100,000 cars going over our heads every day, enhancing community greening projects and supporting local community groups to make changes in greening and in these spaces. And then, of course, a lot today has been spoken about already of that internal transformation that's just starting. The leadership's the beginning of it, but being community-centered and recognizing the transformation needs to play out in enabling local people to do and achieve things rather than doing things to them. And then finally, this immediate issue of providing that clear path through the current crises that are to do with financial sustainability, COVID related, the well-being of people in the community, of colleagues, of partners in the community through COVID. The institutional racism review that just came out on Friday, taking that forward, embracing it and working with it, navigating that path from institutional racism to institutional equity, equality, diversity and inclusion, and supporting the organization through this really significant organizational change, managing this crisis, these crises. So it does mean the strategy has to take on board the fact that not everything can be achieved in a day, and that the resources of the organization have massively been affected by COVID. So the challenge of the crisis is managing the disappointment and the anger and the harm and the frustration that you just gave us a glimpse of this evening, that's come over the 50 years and even longer, but actually to try and find that immediate path through that so that we can rebuild, and that new community-centered approach really will mean that you can make the best use of the 23 acres for the community. So those are the huge challenges in the current strategic priorities. And after, next slide, please. You've got a well-deserved 5-minute break. But after the break, again, straight over to more community involvement. So we are going to hear, I'm delighted to say, from Niles Hailstone, the joint chair of the Community Advisory Group, about the institutional racism review. And then, as Toby mentioned right at the beginning, before we open up to other questions and comments again, from Sarah Tuvey of the West London Community Riding Centre. So do take the chance to stretch your legs, and do please come back to hear more and say more and ask more. So thank you very much.
Okay, welcome back. So I hope everybody's refreshed and ready for the next part of our AGM, which will be a couple of really key presentations. I'm sure everybody's aware of the publication of the 2-2 review into institutional racism that took place on Friday. That was quite a momentous and historic occasion for the Trust and obviously for our wider community. And we are now going to hear from Niles, who is the co-chair of the Community Advisory Group to the review, who have been in place for 2 years whilst the review has been taking place, and have put in an immense amount of time and energy and commitment to steering that process as best they could. And obviously they were key in it being the success it has been in terms of the findings and the recommendations, in terms of bringing people to the review to testify. 94 people, including myself, did testify, and that really was a testament to the efforts of the CAG. We're also honoured to have other members of the Community Advisory Group here with us as well. So Niles, we welcome you. Over to you.
Greetings, everybody. Can you hear me? You getting me? Can you hear me? All right, good. Yeah, I'm not going to be using those slides, so you can put us on full screen, yeah? Yeah. All right. Greetings, everybody, on this historic AGM. The truth that leaves home in the morning must come home in the evening. And we finally reached there. You know, I would like to thank the creative force of the universe and the ancestors for protecting us and bringing us this far. And also I would like to make mention of those who shared this journey with us but are no longer with us. Very important. Thanks, Toby, for doing that. Also in the trust presentation, vitally important. Many people have shared this journey with us and are not here to reach this day to see us reach to this point. So we remember them, people like Clary Mende, Eric Price, Amanda Beckles, Tim Burke, David Graeber, Papa Weasel, Lepke, Anthony Perry, John O'Malley, Selwyn Baptiste, so many people. This is for them. This is for them. This is as much as it is for us. It's for us to lay things to rest and at peace. And also, what's come out now is for all of those who have suffered at the hands of the Westway Trust in the past and the colonial mindset of RBKC. The challenge lies ahead that we are at the moment scratching the surface, but the elephant in the room it can no longer be ignored. So we can get to grips with it. As we say, when the rhythm changes, so does the dance. I'd like to stress that we'd like everyone to read this report. We need to move forward with this report as a map. So it's important that when we start to engage with each other, that everyone's actually read and know the content of what's going on moving forward, you know? So everyone, please read the report. It's not going to cover everything that, you know, the history of 50 years, but it's a start, and we're still here to carry on that story and to, you know, carry on from this point. So this is a starting point, the first phase. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to read out our community statement, and then I'm going to invite other members of the CAG to introduce themselves. And then after that, I'm going to finish with our 9 key messages. So first of all, I'm going to just read out our statement. That is a joint statement from the Community Advisory Group. The Community Advisory Group, I have to say also, big respect to them. They've been totally committed for the last 2 years to make sure that we've got the best that we could get out of this process. And they have stuck to it through all the tribulations we've been through. That will be another conversation at a later date, but it hasn't been an easy task. And enough respect to all members who have taken place to get it to this point. So we are living at a time of unprecedented historical time of global change and revelation. And the elephant in the room can no longer be ignored. When the rhythm changes, so does the dance. The African and Caribbean communities of North Kensington have been systematically discriminated against, excluded, and disenfranchised from the 23 acres of land and resources left to the local community in 1971 by the creation of the North Kensington Amenities Trust, now the Westway Trust, with little or no recognition of this history or acknowledgement of the achievements and contributions made. The review came about only because members of the community fought for it to happen. For many years, the community has raised concerns about racism at the trust and in their dealings with community and their staff members. In undertaking this review, the leadership of the trust has joined with members of the community to co-lead the Community Advisory Group. The community members have remained autonomous in this process in order to be able to robustly represent the conscience of the community throughout this challenging and difficult process. I'm glad to say that we've now reached a historical turning point with the release of this report. It has been more than a challenging process with many more challenges on the horizon, and respect is due to all members of our community that have participated and contributed to this landmark document, both past and present. The review clearly finds the Westway Trust are guilty of institutional racism. That historical institutional racism that existed was proved beyond a doubt. In the report, we heard how this has damaged many individual lives and removed opportunities from generations of young people in the community. Despite the willingness to undertake this review, there was also clear evidence in the process of the review of continuing institutional racism in the trust. In particular, in the inability and unwillingness to engage with the community as equal partners. For members of the community and past staff of the Westway Trust, this review may not be everything they had hoped for, but it's clear and unequivocal in its final conclusions, and reparation is now necessary. There is a clear case for and need for reparations to develop neglected areas of the trust's responsibility. And this is a large-scale undertaking that will take many years to fulfill, but must be undertaken to regain faith in the community and faith in itself and its mission. Let this work be used as a roadmap to lead us forward into a new era of real community leadership and regeneration in its truest and realest context. This work must not be delayed. We must start the work now. People, families, and communities have been damaged, and delay further damages them and the relationships with the trust. We must start bridging that gap now. It will not be an easy task, and there will be many more challenges ahead. However uncertain the future may be, we, the Community Advisory Group to the review, remain resolute and committed to the realization and fruition of the reparation and restoration of the local community by all means necessary, and look forward to developing a new model and paradigm that truly works for the beneficiaries the land was intended for. It is difficult, though possible, for this work to be done together. We have come a long way, and if we continue to have the courage to have the many difficult and direct conversations, we will continue to make the changes the community needs. 2021 will mark 50 years since the creation of the Trust, and we look forward in the next 50 years to creating a legacy that will live on long after we have all gone and be passed on to our children and our children's children. We take this stand in order for them to be able to live free, healthy, meaningful, and prosperous lives without forever being haunted by the crimes committed against our ancestors and having to continually live under unacceptable imposition of institutional racism and discrimination. We'd like to thank all who have contributed to bringing this to fruition and look forward to working together to recalibrate, reset, and rebuild our incredibly resilient, uniquely talented and gifted community. There's a new Trust leadership, as during the process of review and as the truth began to emerge, there was an exodus of the old guard and addition of more members of the community to the board. The new community membership is not responsible for what the old guard did before them. They are, however, responsible for correcting systematic problems they have inherited. The elephant in the room is blowing its trumpet and can no. So, in case you don't know, I went straight into it there. My name is Niles Hailstones. I'm co-chair of the Community Advisory Group to the review. If you want to contact us, you can contact us on info@ircommunityadvisorygroup.com. That's info@ircommunityadvisorygroup.com. And our website is www.ircommunityadvisorygroup.com. At this point, I want to invite other members of the CAG to introduce themselves, and then I'll come back and round things off after you've met the other members. So, is anyone ready to come in? So we start with MZ, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Greetings, everyone. As Niles had said, and I echo what he has said, it's been a very challenging time. I can't lie, we've had some very, very difficult conversations, but we are making headway. We are, we can see how there is a kind of a light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. So this is the beginning of this next phase. I too have been part of Westway 23 since its inception. And also was on the recruitment panel for the chair position. And I just really like to thank all the tenacity of those community members that kept, because there's been a lot of people that we walked side by side with that have just, even not getting anything for not being paid or whatever, they have just kept going and going and going and volunteering themselves and whatever from time. As a CAG now, and bringing us to this point, not to mention those people's shoulders that we stand on that came before us that got ignored, those community members that brought up institutional racism and were basically just traumatized by this whole experience to the point where a lot of people gave up or they passed on or various things. This is the beginning, and there has been generational institutional racism that's affected all of us, and it's time to start putting that right for everyone, so that we can get the community that we want to see. We get the Westway Trust that we want to see. So the talks and stuff have been really, everyone's looking in the right direction now. Everyone's trying to get to the same place. And I think even if there's more difficult conversations, we're in this, as we have been from the beginning, for the long haul. So I'd like to thank everyone. There's a lot of people's faces up here that I can see, and names that I can see in here that I recognise have been on that journey side by side. So yeah, we'll just keep moving on. Thank you. Would someone else like to, one of the other community members of the CAG like to speak?
Clive, are you there?
He's on mute. I don't know if he's...
Here, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right, my name is Clive Phillip, and I'm a member of the CAG. I'm also the founder of the Mangrove Steel Band, and I have been fighting the trust and the council for 40 years. I have led demonstration outside the town hall with the steel band, complaining about space and other things to do with the land. So for 40 years, I've been at it. And this was the opportunity now that happened, what happened now. So, I mean, I don't want to go back all the way back. No, I want to go forward. And what I'm looking for is to make sure that we're not going to be waiting another 5 years down the line for things to happen. People have to be compensated because a lot of people lost the space there. The kids get displaced, and a lot of things went wrong because of the racist behavior of Roger Maitland. And as far as I'm concerned, I just want things to go into action now because we don't have much time. We're not going to wait another 10 years or 5 years for things to go into place. Things have to happen from tomorrow. That is how fast I want to see things happening. People get back space so the kids can have somewhere to go and they're not on the street. And this is what we're fighting for. And people have to be compensated for all the wrong that the council did and the trust. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Clive.
Yeah.
Yes. Nicole, are you there?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Nicole. I'm a community member who was actively involved in the campaigning process of Westway 23. I'm now a member of the CAG. As everyone is aware, the long overdue report is finally released. A report that unveiled not only the racism and injustice faced by the North Kensington community, but classism as well. For me, this is a historical moment for those who were subjected to institutional racism at the hands of the trust. I must admit the dynamic of the trust have changed. It comprised of more community members. However, to see the change, we need to work as a unified front to ensure the changes promised by the trust leaders are made for generations to come. As a member of the CAG, I'm committed to ensure that systems of reparation and restorative measures are implemented by those in the leadership role at the trust. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. That's it. Marcia, are you there? Okay, I know Marcia was having problem with her connection earlier. We've got another member, Malcolm Phillips, also, who's actually teaching at the moment, who can't be here this evening, who's also a member of the CAG, and also Miss Lee, Lady Lee Wolford Chivers, is also a member of the CAG. If Marcia is not there, then I'm going to forward on with our 9 key messages, which you can also get on our website. The 9 key messages that we wanted to communicate regarding this review. Number one is that the review came about only because community members fought for it. This has to be clear. In illustrating that also, it was forced into being. We also have to remember that the Westway Trust as it currently stands is not the same organization that instigated the review. And that when the seriousness of it came to light, a lot of people fled. So for many years, the community had raised concerns about racism at the trust and in their dealings with the community. From 2015, OVCC and Westway 23 systematically raised this with the trust leadership privately and publicly. So this has been a long-standing battle to get this to the table. Number two, the Westway Trust are guilty of institutional racism. This is not a surprise to us. This is why we've been doing this work, so that this could become a historical fact and we can have a timeline that we can then work on to properly repair the damage. The historical institutional racism that existed has been proved beyond a doubt and damaged many individual lives and removed opportunities from generations of young people. And that also, as what Mashup was just talking about also, is the same thing. You know, it has had a disastrous effect on our young people. And at this point in time, we can't waste any time in trying to redress that issue. Number three, institutional racism continues in the Westway Trust. Now, what are we saying by that? We're also saying that, you know, there was an unwillingness for the trust to deal with us on an equal basis during the process. That's the old guard that we're talking about, you know, but things have changed during that process, yeah? And when we say institutional racism still continues, it's because institutional racism has a structure, it has a foundation, it has an infrastructure. It doesn't just exist as abstract, it's written into the whole system. So in order to challenge it and deal with it, you have to deal with its systematic practices, its structure and its infrastructure and the pillars that hold it up. This is the next phase. The nature of the CAG. The CAG is set to continue way into the future. So this isn't a work that we've done, this review lands and then, you know, everyone says, all right, we got there. No, it's not about that. It's about, this is the first phase in a very long journey, the first step that makes this an historical fact that we can then begin to address it. The CAG will be carrying on from this point for the coming years to ensure that these things are implemented, that the changes that are needed and the developments that need to be put in place, the things that need to be healed are actually implemented sooner than later. And that's a direct commitment from us as the CAG, especially as being those people most affected by it. And we also have to remember there's people now in the trust who've also been affected by it. So we hope that this resonates with everybody. So yeah, the CAG needs to continue this challenging but productive collaboration. It's a difficult work, but we need to keep on it. We need to keep our eye on the ball, yeah? 6, there is a need for a large-scale reparatory program, yeah? There is a clear case and need for reparation to develop neglected areas of the trust responsibility. And this is a large-scale undertaking that will take many years to fulfill. So we don't expect to repair the damage in 5 years, in 10 years. We've had 50 years of this. So we're expecting to be doing this for the next 50 years. And I know that other members of the CAG will resonate with us say that basically we are here to plant those trees, that we will not necessarily have the opportunity to sit under. Yeah. So what we set now has to outlive us, has to outlive us. And this work must not be delayed, echoing what Clive just said. The work must start now. People, families and communities have been damaged, and delay further damages them and the relationships with the trust. Yeah. So we must start that work now. And I know that, you know, since the release, we have the CAG have already met, and we're going to keep meeting on a regular basis to make sure that that happens. And let's use this report, number 8, as a driver for change. The whole point that this is a timeline, it's an historical timeline. So it's important that people read the report so we can have that dialogue. Yeah, we can have that dialogue on a historical level. And 9, there's a new trust leadership, which I think we've mentioned a few times. So I won't reiterate that again. I'll just say that, as you can see, we are in a much more healthy place of working together to bring these changes into being. And, you know, we have to work on that, expanding and continuing until, as Toby said earlier, there's no distance between the community and the trust. The trust is not an organization other than we are all part of that one thing, and it is in our interests, and it looks after our interests, and it's a benefit to the community. We're going to be inviting the community to get involved with the CAG in the future. We're going to have to work that out with all of the COVID things that are going on. We'd arranged a couple of interactive meetings, but I'm seeing from tomorrow we go into tier 3. So we will work our way around that. We'll probably be setting up some more Zoom meetings so that we can interact and discuss this more. We look forward to the work, but like I said, this is only the first step of a massive work that now needs to be done. But we stand on the verge of something that is very historical. And we now have the opportunity to set something that can become a new paradigm and a model for other people to actually see how a community comes together to defend its culture and its legacy successfully and rebuild and regrow from that. So let's take it forward from here, and let's just start to plant those seeds that lead to the green shoots that will make this land green and prosperous for all involved. Ashe.
Niles, there's a message from Christian in the group who's asking a question.
Okay.
I can read it.
Okay. All right, I've seen it. I'd like to ask Niles if he thinks the report falls short in terms of holding the old guard to account. Seems everyone responsible is skip free. Yeah, I think this is a very good question. And also I'd like to give credit to you, Christian, for what you did in the process, you and Miriam. You know, you were brought in as community engagement and you did exactly that. But the organization before, they were hiring community engagement to not do the job, and that's the difference of what will be going on now. I'm glad that you went native and you started to sound like us. We're proud of you, man, for standing up for the community, and you're always welcome, to be involved in us moving forward as well, because when it was needed, you and Miriam stood up and you exposed what was going on, and that needs to be a model for the trust in the future, is that the people that's coming in know that, this is an organization where something's going wrong, talk about it, make it be known. The trust for a long time operated in a cocoon where nobody even knew who they were or what they were talking about, or where their offices were. But we were always affected by their decisions. Yeah. So, yeah, I do think they fled. But, the reality is the truth that leaves home in the morning must come home in the evening. And no matter how far you run, you can't run away from yourself. So I think that story is to be continued. And I think the review in itself, contains quite a few clues in that direction. If there's no more questions, I'm aware of the time, and I know we've got to move this on. So once again, just give thanks to everybody for who's contributed to this, past and present, those now in the ancestral realm, and those yet to come. We do this for our children, our children's children, and our children's children's children, our Sheo.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Niles. Thank you to all the members of the Community Advisory Group. And I can only reiterate what Niles has said, that we are all, as trustees, looking forward to building the relationship with the Community Advisory Group and moving forward through this great time of change. The Community Advisory Group is what it says on the tin, and we have committed to centering our community, so we move forward. Next up, we are going to hear from another vital member of our community, somebody who has endured a lot at the hands of the Trust, and who has held a space that has been incredibly important for our community through the years. At the Latimer end of the 23 acres, I welcome Sarah Tuvey. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I'd just like to say I can see there's quite a few people here who, along my way, had been involved in my battle. ISIS was there on the pinnacle day of the horse bailiff. I can see Robert Larkins is on this meeting, who had attended many meetings with me to try and pursue to get the stables back. Henry Peterson, in the earlier days, had tried to help me. I'd worked with Christian Wales at the Trust, Tom, Fitch, Shireen, MZ, Niles, yourself, Toby, Eve, Jacob. Everybody has seen what's happened. So I'd just like to say that I'm speaking now, obviously, on behalf of myself, not on the charity that's dealing with the stable. Firstly, I would like to applaud everybody by laying out the Trust's historical discrimination. It's an important step in the road to reparative justice, but it's only a step, and I say this as I have for many years, as you know, suffered like the discrimination of classes by the Trust. Sorry, I had to write this out at the beginning of this, but issues, but there's always been issues about the land on Stable Way. It's been pivotal in the development around the area. I fought constantly to try and bring back the stables, and of course have suffered with having no work at all, having to actually move out because of what happens to me in the end. I'm sad to see in the report it says that they should have offered me some sort of compensation, that they carried on having all these meetings with me for like years and years, when these things were sort of known. Also, I feel that the state of Stable Way, as Lucas said, is just appalling. The only time I've ever seen them do any work is when they actually put a new roof on the welding shop and put up some new fencing and filled in some holes. That's in the whole time I was on Stable Way, which is about 25 years, I think. And so just going forward, like the report said that the land was down for development. I heard Angela said that the development has stopped. Is it possible to know what the vision from the trustees is? There has to be a vision on Stable Way. It surely can't stay in that state. There've been development issues since Martin Freeman's time. Is there another plan on Stable Way at all? Obviously, there's got to be a better environment there. It was going to be the top 10 destination in England. Is that still going to be the case? I don't think so, but can we just confirm what is going to happen there? I don't know if everyone knows, but I've been doing work through the NHS and a dedicated service with bereaved and survivors of Grenfell, where I've moved to, which seems to have been quite a success and which is quite good, you know, to actually be working back with people in the community. And like Christina said, how do we hold accountable the people who actually put everybody through what they put them through? And, you know, I hope that going forward, we make the whole of the 23 acres a better space for everyone. And that's it, really. That's all I've got to say. Thank you. Just take it.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you. So yeah, there's a question there for us in terms of around the vision for Stable Way. I think in the presentation I mentioned that during the campaign we didn't really have any explicit visions for spaces or anything. I think we were too busy supporting people like yourself and coming together and sharing our concerns and trying to hold the trust to account on simply what it was doing in the present. Really, it's about our community. You know, it was always about building a platform for our community to take this space and to come forward with our visions. So of course, I don't think we can talk about a vision for Stable Way without yourself and Luke and the other people who actually inhabit that space. Henry, people, you know, residents obviously of the local area around St. Quintin's, Latimer Road, etc. So I believe that if there's a vision, the only vision is how do we build the spaces and the platforms to authentically work with you, properly work with you, not consultation as I think we've known it over the past 5 or 10 years, but actual real working together to actually build a vision and to build something that works and means that you don't anymore feel that that space is completely disregarded or disrespected. There's a lot of work in that because a lot of those processes simply don't exist in the trust. And that's the sort of thing that we're constantly working on now, of how you actually begin to build those processes and build those procedures and platforms and spaces. But yeah, I think that's all I can really say from the board, because, you know, our vision isn't so much as a physical space, it's about the way the space works. It's the way it works. And the way it works should be that people like yourself, Sarah, like Luke, are not coming to meetings like this to say some of the things you've said this evening. The best problem is a problem that does not happen. And we've been storing up these problems. This organization has been storing these problems up for 50 years. And our job, and as I think we've shown, and we will continue to show only through real intentions and real action, is to begin systematically going through those problems and making a difference. So, I mean, I hope that answers your question a little bit. I'm sorry, I can't tell you like if we have, as I say, this physical vision, because we don't. The vision is to converse with you and for people like yourself to guide us and to guide this organization properly, as it ought to have been doing for the past 50 years. Is that okay, Sarah?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Looking forward to catching up properly and yeah, moving things forward.
Thank you.
Okay, so I believe that's the end of the kind of presentation section of the meeting. And we're now going to go into a Q&A session. We appreciate the time, as Niles has mentioned, you know, he knows the time.
Toby, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, so we're now going to move into a Q&A session, and yeah, appreciating the time is now just gone past 8:15. So it is getting on. So please, anybody who wishes to leave, please just, that's absolutely fine. But we now have these questions that we're going to begin to go through. And if there are any other questions that you didn't feel were answered or you'd like more detail on, then please put them into the chat. There may be questions that we might have to take away to provide answers. But let's get going with that. So, number one, the Gloucester Court Reminiscence Group has not been able to meet since February 2020, owing to the ages and vulnerability of its participants. Therefore, I would like to ask if there is a community engagement team still in place at Westway Trust, as I have not been contacted by a member of this team since February 2020. That's from Maggie Tyler, Gloucester Court Reminiscence Group. Yes, so first of all, the question, is there? Yes, there is. There is a community engagement team. It is smaller than it was in February. It has lost a member. And it has been furloughed for a long time throughout the COVID lockdown. That team was furloughed and has been kind of on and off of furlough. This has been one of the practical impacts on the trust that has been really difficult to manage. Essentially, the organisation had to take full advantage of the job retention scheme, the JRS, which is basically furloughing. And that meant that our capacity to support groups, members, to support the community was hit extremely hard. There is nothing less than a full intention now to move into 2021 and begin to rebuild this organisation's relationship with its members, and indeed to look closely at the structure itself. As you might recall from my presentation, that was one of the demands of Westway 23, and that's something I've carried as chair. The membership is a huge part of this organisation. There is absolutely no way to deny that or look at it in any other way. This is a membership organisation. However, when we look back in the history of it, there are questions around how that membership has worked. How that membership has worked for members, how that membership has worked for the trust, and how that membership has worked for the community. Those people who are not part of that membership, those people who are not members. And that is something we need to work on this year. That's something that we need to really look at closely, and we need to engage with members. I'm not satisfied that we've got around 30 members here this evening. To me, as chair of this organisation, that's not acceptable. 50% of our members coming to our AGM is not acceptable. We need more than that. We need more engagement. And so it's up to the trust, and it's also up to members for us to work together to do what is right by our wider community. So that will be a piece of work for us all to engage in this year. And a big part of that will obviously be our community engagement team beginning to reach out to each and every member, trustees as well, to begin to reach out so that you know who we are. And we can reduce questions like this. So I think that's the issue around, there is a strategic issue and how historically things have worked, but there's also the very practical reality of the impact of COVID this year on that team. And they have been working incredibly hard on all sorts of things. So yeah, we will move forward and improve that. The next question from Christian.
Sorry, Toby. I think the agenda demands that you answer member organisations' questions first.
Okay, that's fine. So the second question from a member organisation is, while during the coronavirus, office rent increased when not being able to use the premises. So, I mean, maybe I would have to hand over to Teresa around the increases that happened. There were increases, there have been increases that have happened. I believe there are things that will have happened kind of automatically, because there are, I believe valuations, for instance, of properties. One of the things as part of this organization that we have to handle is the fact that it is a landlord, and that there are things and processes that take place as a landlord, but also as a charity. We're a charity that has to essentially maximize our income in order to provide benefit. We do provide significant, I think 2/3 reductions in rents. I see Teresa's had to leave the meeting, unfortunately. Mark, is it something that you could perhaps update or provide more information on?
Well, I think you've given a good overview of it, Toby. So what I'd rather do, if that's okay, is we have agreed we'll collect these questions and publicise the response so that we're able actually to get, Teresa's had to leave for family reasons, so family commitment. So I'd rather that we get the accurate response to this than me adding something overview level again, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an important question, and it's, yeah, of course, completely, yeah, a really important one. So if you allow us to, yeah, come back to that. These are discussions that we have in the Property in Place Committee. We also have a separate rent panel as well that's been looking at some of these things. And we also have an asset review that is taking place. Quite a bit of work has been done, and we're beginning to pull in all of these questions around rent levels, around community access to space, around the historical issues that the institutional racism review has now brought in. So yeah, we can come back with a full and proper answer and hopefully engage you in a proper discussion around all of this. So the next from a member organisation, next question. I know Mary is from a member organisation, I believe. I think she's from Mind, and that's a similar question. So again, we'll take that on board in terms of all of this around rents and the whole question of how space is used, especially during this time, and we'll bring that back. The next question from a member is from Ruth of the West London Bowling Club. This question was submitted prior to the AGM. We would like to ask the Trust at the AGM whether it remains the Trust's intention to continue to offer financial benefits to its members, using, for example, the mechanism of Everyone Active's charity pot. Well, as far as I'm aware, yes. I mean, it's absolutely, there are ways that EA, Everyone Active, provide benefits for members. And as well as beneficiaries and the wider beneficiaries of the community. COVID has, as we've heard, had a massive impact on this organisation. And one of the biggest impacts it's had is on our relationship with Everyone Active and on that entire space. Everyone here probably knows, Piers has mentioned the leisure industry and the Maxilla Social Club. Equally, sports clubs, health clubs have been enormously impacted by the coronavirus, one of the most heavily impacted industries and areas in the UK economy and in our everyday lives. As part of that, we have been discussing at great length with them how they provide for this community and how that relationship works. There is a contract that exists between Everyone Active and Westway Trust, and part of that contract is around community impact. Trustees have questioned how strongly we've held up that community impact and how strongly we've held up that part of the contract. And we've made a key decision, a strategic decision, to slightly reset that relationship. I'm happy to report that EA have a manager who is being put in recently in the last few months, who has been really stepping up to that engagement. We have Shireen, Marwan, myself, who all engage Everyone Active, also Tom as well, who engage with Everyone Active on their delivery for our community. Shireen has been in bi-weekly meetings with their management to have open conversations about how things are developing. So yes, absolutely, we will take this now particularly and ensure again that their delivery for the local charities and indeed our members is as strong as it has ever been. And of course, our intention is simply to make that stronger. So I hope that answers your question. So I don't know if I've seen a
Toby, I have something to say, if I may. Sweetheart, Silchester RA, whom I'm representing, would really like to thank Angela for the amazing work she has done. We're very proud that she was a member nominated trustee. She won an election, actually, I think, against me back in the day. But the work that she's put in transitioning to the new board is fabulous, and we'd like to thank her. It was great to see Mashup. We'd also like to thank the CAG for the work they've done in making sure that these historical injustices were addressed. If I may say two things. One, I noticed there is a member nominated trustee missing from the board. There was a resignation which hasn't been replaced. And I'd like to know when that election was going to happen. Similarly, I know that the CAG was created on an ad hoc basis to make sure that the intentions of the Tutu report were addressed. And I'd like to know what the future relationship of the CAG, which obviously is unelected, so I don't know where that stands going forward. But more importantly, I'd like to pick up the point you made, Toby. There are 64 members, I think, of the Westway Trust. There were 29 last year. 29 appear to have applied to be at this meeting, of which only 15 are here, which is 25%. And in many ways, that's not good enough. I mean, we, Silchester, represent 1,700 people. I think Tom is here representing Swinbrook, another 1,700 people who live underneath the Westway. Bramley House aren't here. Lancaster West is still not a member organisation of the Westway Trust. I'm not even sure whether Tavistock / Colville are here. Monica. So how are we going to ensure that we create a constitution that is going to represent particularly the people who live within 100 metres of the Westway?
Okay, so there's a few questions in there. So first off, around trustees, yes, exactly. There is a member nomination vacancy. There are a number of vacancies. There are currently 8 trustees out of 12. The 4 vacancies are 1 member vacancy, 1 council nomination vacancy, and 2 openly recruited vacancies. In the new year, we will be moving forward to do the process. That is, when I say the new year, not vague, that's January. We will be looking at all of our vacancies and looking at capacity. Our trustees are flat out, as you can imagine, and building more capacity into the board at this time is now vital in order that we can move into 2021 and get through the immense amount of work that we have in front of us. So the membership nomination process, the votes that will take place, those documents will go out. I believe they'll go out actually in the next few days, and we'll also be looking at the other trustee vacancies as well. As far as the CAG's future, I think first of all, obviously Niles would be well placed to answer that from the CAG's perspective. From the Westway Trust perspective, the CAG have obviously committed immense amounts of time and energy to this process, and the Westway Trust are committed to continuing to work with the CAG.
Okay.
Sorry. Matt, could you? Thank you. So yeah, with the Westway Trust are committed to continue to work with the CAG as they are currently, what's the word? Formed with the current members, with the current membership. However, we have also made clear that we are here, Westway Trust is here to support the CAG to ensure that its governance and its capacity is correct moving forward. You know, we have to acknowledge, we do acknowledge that those members, for instance, have spent huge amounts of time and effort on this. We're committed with them for at least the next 5 years. And so as much as trustees have capacity issues, the CAG members also have capacity issues, which may mean that they will bring new members on board. But that is up to the CAG, that is up to the Community Advisory Group. It is not up to Westway Trust to make that demand of them. It is up to the Westway Trust to support them to ensure that they do right by the people that they are representing, and that they also maintain capacity to do their work, to do their vital work now. So I mean, that's from the Westway Trust perspective. We can't really say any more than that. That would be for Niles and other members of the Community Advisory Group to speak further on that. Niles, would you like to say anything more on that?
Yeah. Basically, you know, yes, the CAG was not voted for or in that way. But let's go back to what my initial statement was. This was something that was forced into being. Even though the talk was that the trust at the time wanted to do it willingly, obviously they didn't want the result that they got. And it wasn't as willing as it may have seemed to be. Yeah, so we as the CAG had to build ourselves in a way that would be autonomous. Now, if we don't look at it in that way, then you're in danger going back to the old structures again. The reason it's been successful because it was autonomous and could talk for the community autonomously without being restricted by the protocols of a corporation. So we're looking to keep that voice, you know, as free as possible, you know, and that means that we have to be masters of our own destiny. And the people that have got it this far are the ones who got it this far. And there's a reason that it happened that way, because those people are the people who's committed to these changes coming in. And as a CAG, we will be looking to those, you know, those same energies to come and join us in the future to move on and build this thing together as a community. But they have to be committed energies who are actually active in doing things. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Niles. I mean, I think as well, I'd like to add that the CAG, the Community Advisory Group, is an example of how this organisation has to engage with this community. It has to engage with this community around how it works and how it makes its decisions. And it needs to engage properly in how it listens to community members. But the CAG is not by any means going to be the only space for that. We are looking right now at a new committee, a new environment committee that will be open for members of the community to come on board and essentially determine what happens around the environment for this organization. We need more spaces like that. We need more community advisory groups. We need more people who can actually get hold of these decisions and make things happen. We have to be clear, trustees are responsible. Trustees are the ones who are liable. They are the ones who essentially have authority within the organization, and there is no way currently in charitable law of getting around that.
Toby,
but what we do around that in terms of ensuring that it is genuine community participation in decision making, as far as I'm concerned and all of the board is concerned, there's a huge way to go and a huge amount that we need to do now.
Toby, I appreciate all of that. And as you know, I applaud the CAG's work in making sure that the Tutu report was thorough and transparent. On the other hand, as you know, Silchester sent a trustee to the board recently, and we are committed to the constitution of the Westway Trust being upheld. And we just worry a tiny bit that if the CAG's influence is undefined, that may store up problems going forward for the trust.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So yeah, so in terms of things being undefined, I mean, that's exactly an issue around procedure and process. We've heard this evening around, many community members speaking about how work has to be done now. There's no time to wait. We have to just move forward. We all hear that. We all appreciate that. We are the people who are for 5 years were sacrificing ourselves to make, so we want things to move forward. Within this organization, on arrival, it is bureaucracy. That is a reality that we need to deal with. I am in meetings with solicitors every single week, almost, on big issues that are about millions of pounds for this organization. It takes time. And so I completely hear what you're saying, Piers, and believe me, we take that extremely seriously. And so in terms of moving forward, we are going to go into processes with all of these spaces and all of these things. It's not simply going to happen at a click of a finger. It doesn't work like that. We are held by the Charity Commission to doing things in proper, transparent, accountable ways. And that is why it takes so many meetings. That is why it takes so much paperwork, so much effort by staff to keep up with what we're wanting. Huge amounts that they're having to keep up with. And so absolutely, we will take that. And, but I think, we do have to really listen to what Niles has said here and listen to what other CAG members have to say.
No, Toby, we listened to them, and to be honest, the members are behind you, Toby.
Can we not cut into each other, please? They have put themselves on the line, and we are committed to them. But as I've said, we're committed to supporting them to ensure their governance is right, and they have full capacity to move forward in the right way for this charity and for this community. I think Emzy might want to say something as well.
Hi, I just want to add something really quickly. I think we need to get to, we need to come to the point that the Westway Trust has been run incorrectly, and it has left out a significant part of the community. Yeah, and this is about repairing that damage. We're at a transformative stage. I think that we also, people like Ed Darfan and his group, they were not allowed into the membership. So there's been a whole gatekeeper approach into becoming of some people that weren't allowed into that. So that in itself, in terms of other member groups that would like to be part of the Westway Trust that were prevented from doing so, that has to be changed as well. So this is a Westway Trust, or North Kensington Amenities Trust, was set up for the local community, and everyone should have had an opportunity to get in that. This report has shown that that was not the case. So I understand what you're saying, Piers, and I respect that's your opinion, but I think we have to go back to the core of why the trust was set up and the things that have gone wrong, and we need to change that around now. The CAG is made up of very experienced people, community members, Miss Lee, Clive Mashup Phillips, Niles Hales, residents that are experts in having institutional racism directed at all of us. So we are the experts, and we have put in a lot of time and effort. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, MZ. You know, I mean, it's a balance that we're constantly having to strike. We are going into new spaces. We have to acknowledge that we're going into new spaces. Following Friday's publication, this organisation had to send documentation to the Charity Commission. That was a reality of what we had to do. And we have a staff team who support us with that. We have solicitors, we have auditors, we have outside experts, we have the CAG to support us with this. But as I say, a lot of it is going to, it's going to take a lot of time. As Eve has said in the chat, in many instances, the processes simply aren't there. The procedures simply are not there. And so we are having to build them from scratch. And we are constantly checking back with each other and checking, as I say, with expert advice, et cetera, to make sure that things are right. So I really do take on board your concerns in a big way, because they're concerns that we have also shared and we've also discussed. And you're absolutely correct as a member to point us back to the Constitution and to make sure that we're making these right decisions. Now is not the time for our community to have taken over this organisation only to fall because we're not actually fulfilling our objectives or fulfilling our responsibilities. And we take that very seriously. And on that point, your final question or issue around the Constitution and around members, as I've said, the membership, I would hope, obviously, we will be sharing this entire AGM over the coming days, a recording of it, but also we can share as well the actual presentation, and you will see that the demands and essentially the intentions that I brought forward into this role included looking at the membership. And you cannot look at the membership without looking at the Constitution, because the membership is constituted. And we are constituted as a membership organisation. So we will be looking at the membership very closely. We will be looking at the Constitution very closely, but all of that must happen with the community. We are community trustees, but we are only 8 currently.
Toby, you know what? I think most of the members, or certainly all the members who are here, are right behind you. And if you go back to my comments at last year's AGM, it's very disappointing that some of the members aren't here and are not contributing. I mentioned Bramley House before, but, on the membership are people like Catalyst Housing. If they're going to be members, they should be here. They can't just sit hidden away. I think in the last 12 months, we persuaded Alex and Mark to get rid of some of the really dodgy members, like the Regeneration Trust, who appeared to be a shill organisation on behalf of Rockfielding Mellon. We, certainly Portobello Radio. I'm probably here also as Youth Action Alliance, as well as Silchester, because Tani can't be with us tonight. We're right behind you in making sure that the constitution of this organisation is dedicated to furthering the hopes, aspirations and welfare of the beneficiaries. We're right behind you, Toby.
Thank you, Piers. That's, yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So yeah, let's do it. I mean, yeah, as you said, we've got some committed members that are constantly committed. Yourselves, Silchester included, Cash, obviously. There are members who are turning up all of the time and who have taken part in the campaign and supported the campaign, but it's far too few. So yeah, let's work together to really improve things, because those of you who do input, you do an amazing job, and that's what this is about. But imagine what more we can do if there's 4 times more of us. Incredible. Thank you. So there's some final questions in here. Now I don't think there are any more member questions. We do have a question around the stables. Can the trust respond to the stable situation regarding the signing of the lease? So obviously I need to be careful around any specifics around any individual tenant. But yeah, I mean, I think I can say that there has been progress in as much as the West London Community Riding Centre are at the table with Westway Trust, and we are progressing things. We are progressing that situation. I'm quite hopeful that we will have horses on the land in the new year. But yeah, that's where we are with that. Yes.
Hello, can I say something?
Luke, yeah, please do.
Well, I don't think, me personally, and I think if you're going to redevelop the stables, what you need to be redoing now, because the problem with the stables, they got across the road, yeah? And when they got across the road to get into the stables, yeah? That's the problem with the stables. The stables should be where Hassan's unit is, then you link that straight across. Because if you're going to spend all that money redoing the stables, because all them stables in there, they're knackered. They all need coming down. They've been there hundreds of years, they're falling down. So what I'm saying, if you're going to spend all that money redeveloping the stables, think about what you're doing. You're talking about building the bridge. Put the stables where Hassan's unit is. It's all concrete. It's easy. It's much more easier to drain and all of that. And put where the stables where Hassan's is, and then you've got the stables linked directly to the arena. You'll get no more horses running around, escaping and da-da-da. No more horses having to wait for cars to cross. That's what I've been saying to the trust for a long, long time.
Okay, fantastic. So as long as have we got a note of that, as long as we've got a note of what you've just said.
Health and safety and all the rest of it, it'd be much more practical to put because when Sarah's people come, they can come in through the side, park along the side. Yeah. When Sarah wants to move horses, no, not Sarah, but when the stables want to move horses, they can come down the side. They can drop the gate and they can, put the van right next to the gate. Horses can't escape.
Yeah, I completely hear what you're saying. So what we'll do now is we'll take that and make sure that if that isn't happening, exactly what the answer is, so that we can come back to you and we can continue this discussion. Because off the top of my head, that makes perfect sense. But this is what I mean. All of this sort of stuff then has to go back into conversations. You've got different people. There are all sorts of there'll be planning. For instance, they'll be making sure with Hassan that we can do that. There'll be different leases that we need to work through with those different tenants. So what sounds simple.
What I'm saying,
okay, but it's a
vital. You might as well do the hard. You might as well do it. If you're going to start from scratch now,
yeah,
you might as well wipe the slate clean and start and do it properly. So you've got the stables will work along the side of the arena, and then away you go.
Yeah, completely hear what you're saying. Yeah, well, don't worry, Mark will have taken that note and we'll be taking it back to Teresa into our conversations. I mean, it makes sense, but it's not for me to say, but I'm with you, but I don't know the space enough. You do.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Lee. So let's see a question that came up beforehand from Dio. Apologies if you have already talked about it. I have not been present throughout. In regards to improving our local environment, what are future plans? Yeah, so I mean, future plans really are essentially quite, I believe, are quite exciting now. As was outlined earlier, I think with Tom, so Dio, you would have missed it. The trust secured around £1.3 million from the GLA. The trust is matching that to make a total of around £2.6 million. And that money is dedicated to the environment of the 23 acres. This is where we come back up to somewhere like Latimer, the stables, etc. How can money be spent now to actually improve that area? There is more. I think Henry has put a very good comment in the chat in terms of, there's a lot to be done at this. 2.3 million, 2.6 million might not even touch the sides at the stables after 50 years of neglect. So we can't, we can't say that we're going to completely transform the 23 acres, but it will make an impact. And more than that, it's really going to be about how the community drives that, and the community determines the things that actually happen with that money, such as the arcade, for instance. Arcade tenants have had a pretty rough ride of it over the past few years. And again, there's money now to invest in that space. And so it will be for the arcade tenants to guide that spending, to make sure that we get the best possible impact and people feel satisfied that they had their say and that they made things happen. So I think we're quite excited. We think it's good because we're in a partnership with the GLA, which themselves, obviously they have big aims and big things that they have to achieve around the environment, in particular air quality. There's a significant amount of that money, I think somewhere in the region of £200,000 or £300,000 perhaps, which is, it might be more than that off the top, that's just off the top of my head, that is really just about environmental greening, particularly around green screening and air quality impacts. So yeah, but this is for us in the new year. This work starts in January with the bringing on of a project manager. The project manager themselves, we are looking to repeat the process that brought me on board. So we will be looking for local community members to essentially find this person who will help to manage this project. It's a 2-year project, and central to it is bringing the community in to actually guide it and steer it. So yeah, I mean, I think obviously I could be here and talk for another hour about this, but essentially we have some money committed, and now it's all about how do we center the community in spending that money and having that impact all the way along 23 acres from Sarah and Luke and Hassan and the stables area all the way down. How do each of these groups actually help to determine how things are done? Let me see. Will the community be invited to the new? Yeah, yes. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to ask a quick question about membership. Is this a paid membership?
For the trust, for the Westway Trust?
Yeah.
No, it's so the membership of the Westway Trust is made up of local organizations and local groups. they don't have to be charities. They can just be constituted groups, or I believe they can be unincorporated associations, so quite loose
Yeah,
group.
but because what I was wondering, because we was a member.
As Mangrove.
Yeah, we was a member, and after with Roger with the problem we had with Roger, when I look on the list, our name not there. The list of members, our name not there. So
Must
I
have
don't
been
know.
taken off at some point. Yeah, I mean, the membership has changed through the years. When you go back through, I have been through the archives of the old annual reports, and you do see that the membership changes throughout
Yeah,
the year.
because we used to pay for the space and things like that. So
Okay. Marcia, you say that you have paid a fee. Could you, do we know, or Martin, would you know? I didn't realize that, I have to say. I didn't think that there was any payment.
In recent years, there's been no fee for membership, so I'm not sure how far back we're talking, but certainly not in the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay. Marcia, do you want to come in on that? Just said that they paid a one-off fee for membership.
Yeah, I've just seen that in the chat. That's not anything I recognise, I'm afraid. Certainly not for the last 5 or 6 years, and certainly not since the current constitution came into effect in 2014.
Okay. All right. Well, we can look further.
That's up. I'm glad to pick that up offline, Marcia, if you'd like.
Absolutely. And Clive, is it something would?
Well, I'm talking from about the 80s. In the early 80s.
And are you saying that Mangrove would like to become a member again?
Well, I suppose so. If we have to be using space there again.
I mean, you don't have to be a member. Let me be clear. You don't have to be a member to gain access to things from the trust. For instance, you don't have to be a member to.
But so what the membership is about voting?
Say again, sorry,
To
Clive?
be able to vote?
Yes, that's exactly why you're a member. You're a member because you can vote. And that's one of the issues that the organisation has had. This comes back to exactly what Piers is saying and what I'm saying. Yeah, it's not engaging enough with the membership. The membership have a vital role to play that a lot of members don't even seem to understand that they have. And so we do need to look properly across all of this and have a real conversation. Is this working? Clearly it's not. Clearly we can do better. How do we do better? What should members be getting out of this? And what should the trust be getting out of it? And what should the community be getting out of it?
Yeah, well, I don't mind being a member because if we have to be able to have a vote on certain things.
Yeah. But yeah, Clive, you're the person who's been up to the town hall with the steel pan band, and you engage in these ways. You've been engaging for 40 years. So,
Yeah, and I mean, that's the only way I could get something out of them, because the second day I went with the steel band, the leader of the council came to me and told me I'm disrupting the what do you call it?
Mashup, you've been disrupting Notting Hill for many, many years.
No, not the library. The people in the library complaining. So he told me go back, call off the demonstration, and he come and see me, which he did. And that is the only time I could get anything from them. Otherwise, they was ignoring you all the time.
Okay. Well, look, I mean, we've got work to do to be clearer about what members get. And as I say, we've got work to do to be clearer with members about what we expect and what this community deserves from its members. So I think, if we can continue this conversation in the new year, I think it sounds like we're guaranteed some good support from Piers and Portobello Radio, etc., and Silchester and the other committed members to building this and making it better. And Clive will make sure that you're Mangrove are on the mailing list and on the group chats to move forward on this.
If I might say one more thing, I mean, Mangrove, Tabernacle, all those organisations should definitely be members of the Westway Trust, and you know, although they deserve everything, you know, that people could bestow upon them, it's important the members of the Westway Trust realise it's what they can give the Westway Trust is important rather than what they can take. And maybe we should be getting 10% off at Westway Sports Centre. But the most important thing is our invigorated involvement in the community. And that's why I applaud, for instance, Tom Fitch, who represents Swinbrook, Monica, who represents Tavistock, my fellow residents in Silchester. I beg Abbas and the crowd from Lancaster West to come and join us, because we are the beneficiaries, and in order to benefit from that, it's important that we engage. And Toby, thank you, because I think, you, to be honest, you're more likely to engage us than Alan Brown.
Thanks, Piers. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a strong word of support. Thank you. So just lastly on the membership point and the constitution and the vote. Some of the changes that the trustees and the community want to make with this organization will be around the constitution. And so that again is why we know that democracy, that's what this is about, essentially. It's about democracy. I'm sure many of us are disillusioned with democracy in different ways. How many people are voting, how many people are not voting, how our voting system works, etc., etc. We do not want to make serious changes to this organization without at least, you know, you tell me, 70%, 75%, 80% commitment from members. I mean, why would we want? That's what happened in 2014. We don't want to repeat that. So, you know, it's something that's just going to have to happen in the new year.
Toby, the challenge is finding a way where democracy represents the member organizations. And I realize not everyone is keen on representative democracy. You know, one of your fellow trustees who I had the honor of speaking with at a big meeting at RBKC, I know I said, well, last year's AGM, I said, well, become part of an organization. She said, not everyone wants to be part of an organization. So we need to find a way of balancing the weight of Silchester RA or Swinbrook RA or Tavistock RA against individuals who don't choose to be part of those organizations. And it's going to be tricky work. And we are all right behind you in finding a solution, which may not take 12 months or 24 months. It may take a few years to work out, but together we'll get there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Piers. 100%. So let me see if there are any final questions here. There is at least one from Marcia. I think there is the question as well from Christian that we didn't get to. So two final questions here. One, I'd like to ask the extent to which losses have been offset by COVID crisis funding, government and charity, and whether fundraising income is forecast for year ahead. Very good question, Christian. And the answer is yes. And well, yes, and we've been trying. So in terms of the extent to which losses have been offset by COVID crisis funding, I'm not sure about specific COVID crisis funding, but as I think Tom mentioned, like right at the beginning, we have engaged someone to come in and support us in looking at how we can actually fundraise. Again, it's become evident that it's a journey that this organization has to go on to become truly fundraising ready, and bring in extra income, which can then be shared amongst community, shared amongst groups, or indeed support our change and support the transformation that's taking place. But it is 100% part of our forecasting, and it's part of our moving forward, and something we're taking very seriously. We've done around 2 or 3 months work around this. And so, yeah, we'd hope in the new year, we will absolutely pick it up again, because it will be part of moving forward. There's so much work for this organization to do. If you even take something like the institutional racism issue, I've made clear that I don't think it's right that this community pays exclusively for its own reparations. We are community trustees. That means we are now in control of the money. It is our money. Why should we pay for what has harmed us and what has damaged us? We can, to a certain extent, of course we can. If we're talking about, you know, tens of thousands of pounds, maybe even hundreds of thousands of pounds, this organization has the money to commit to certain things. But when we're talking about reparations, and we're talking about changing an organization, not just to reflect issues around race, but also around class, also around other issues of discrimination, then let's be serious. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands. We're talking potentially about many millions. And I do not think it's right that our community stumped that up. So 100% fundraising is in our future, and other ways of looking at how we can generate income from outside of ourselves has to be a part of our moving forward. The final 2 questions. Okay, so if we can, it's 9 o'clock now. So if we can have these, if it's okay with everyone, we'll take these as the final 2 questions. Firstly, will the community be invited to the new asset review from Marcia? Yes, absolutely. That was absolutely the topic of our last conversation around the asset review. There's some work being done on it, so that we have something to bring. But yeah, absolutely. This is about what we've looked at. I wrote a small piece myself around, which was kind of incorporated into it, which was around looking at how community can make access or get access to some of the spaces. We will be looking at, you know, all sorts of ways of balancing rent with social value and these kind of things. So it will, yeah, there's a lot to look into there, but it absolutely, it needs the eyes of the community and the thoughts and ideas of the community to now feed into it. So yes, we will be bringing that out to the community. And then finally, how is the Tutu review associated to the council, considering the strong links the council has had? Well, I will reiterate what Niall said. Read the review. The report is in 5 sections. There's a very hefty annex of 284 pages. There's another couple of annexes. You know, it's all of it's worth reading, of course, but at the very least, read the executive summary, read the report, and I'd also say read the minutes, read the community advisory group minutes. If I was able to point you towards any of those to give you a slightly less reading, I'd say those 3 documents: executive summary, the report, and the CAG minutes, to get a flavour of what it's all about. And you read for yourself how the council have been involved or what those links are. I think I made it clear in the presentation at the beginning. The council essentially, and I think Adam Ritchie's quote made it clear. So there's a lot more to be discussed as far as that's concerned and move forward on. And I'm sure, I don't think I even have to ask anyone here that I have the full support and the board has the full support of the community to take those discussions and those deliberations further. And we will be, of course, speaking with RBKC. We're blessed to have Marie-Therese and Marwan on the board, and they've been incredibly supportive as two council nominated trustees, and we'll move forward. I hope that answers your question. So thank you very much, everyone, for quite an immense AGM. I hope it's been okay for you. As I said, I'm sorry that this is the way we've had to meet, and this is the way we've had to share space. It hasn't been ideal. I'm sure many of us are used to it to some degree or other by now, but it's not ideal. We're really looking forward, obviously, to next year's AGM. But before that, we've got 12 months where hopefully we will be able to see each other in person. There's so much work to do. I hope that's clear to everyone this evening. I hope our intentions are also clear. And yeah, I'd just like to say thank you very much. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your beautiful, kind words on the chat. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your challenge. You know, particularly Luke, Marcia, Piers. Thank you, and thank you everyone. Looking forward to moving forward. Have a wonderful, blessed evening. As I said, we know, be careful of the coronavirus out there. Have a wonderful Christmas break. And if I don't see you in the 2020, I hope to see you in the 2021. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Clive.
Right.
Yes. Piers, thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you, Sonia.